like to call to order the Operations Committee for February 10th. First, I'm going to read some obituaries. We had a couple of fallen officers that actually passed away over this weekend. And then we're going to have the prayer by Commissioner Wandale, and we'll have the pledge of allegiance by Commissioner Meade. Please bear with me. First, we have Reverend Robert Ryan. Reverend Robert Ryan Jr., age 62, of Clinton, passed away on Friday, February 7, 2020. He was born on January 18, 1958, in Harriman, Tennessee, to Robert G. Ryan Sr. and Barbara Lawson Ryan. Robert was the pastor of Lakeview Baptist Church and loved his church family. He was also an active deputy for the Anderson County Sheriff's Department, a chaplain of the Clinton City Police Department, member of the Clinton Alpha Louds number 376, a veteran of the United States Air Force, and worked at Holly Gamble Funeral Home part-time. Robert enjoyed building and flying ultralight airplanes and dirt car racing. He was preceded in death by father, Robert G. Ryan Sr. He's survived by wife, Deborah Ryan of Clinton, Barbara Lawson Ryan of Clinton, daughter, Heather Ryan Lemons of Clinton, grandchildren, Kevin Hampton of Clinton, Abigail Lemons of Clinton, C.J. Lemons of Clinton. Richard Anthony Ficino, age 72, passed away peacefully at his home Saturday, February 8, 2020, surrounded by his family. He was born July 3, 1947 in New York City, moved his family to East Tennessee in 1979. He devoted his career to serving the citizens of Anderson and Campbell counties during his long and distinguished law enforcement career. Among his many esteemed positions, Richard served as Chief of Public Safety for the City of Norris, Chief of Detectives and Chief Deputy for the Anderson County Sheriff's Department, Chief of Detectives for the Campbell County Sheriff's Department, and ultimately retired from the Rocky Top Police Department. Of his most notable accomplishments, he solved multiple cold case homicides and other major crimes, which he later documented in a series of novels. He often balanced his stressful law enforcement career with his artistic side, through which he became an accomplished writer and oil painter. He was preceded in death by his parents, Louis and Julie Ficino, his twin sister Marie, his beloved wife of 21 years, Vonda. Thank you. Please stand.
Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this blessed evening you've given us. We ask that you put your hand on those families that have lost those fallen officers. We thank you for their service to our great county and our municipalities. We ask for your guidance, Lord, as we proceed into this evening's business. We ask that you help us make decisions that are in the best interests of those we serve. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in a salute to our flag. Hand salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next is the approval of the agenda, and I think we have some additions.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we add two reports, or two resolutions. One, a resolution seeking assistance from the state of Tennessee for the purpose of purchasing a facility to adequately house and operate the Anderson County Office on Aging and Senior Center. And another one that it's an amended resolution to allow the turkey hunting on county-owned property. I'd like to add those two under the mayor's report on number 7.
We have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
Have any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Next.
Okay, and the next item is motor vehicle lease and release agreement that's presented by the law director. I'd like to add that under new business.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor? Any discussion? Motion passes. Next, we have appearances of citizens for anything that's not on the agenda tonight. Okay, not seeing any. We've got the next thing's going to be coming up is the presentation on elder abuse. And I've got a letter from Tyler to read. Tonight, the Anderson County Operations Committee will hear from Melissa Miller and Detective Wendy Zawoski about elder abuse and a plan of action to combat it. Sheriff Barker planned on being at the committee meeting for this presentation to voice our office's full support. However, as you know, Friday, one of our court security deputies passed away and won't be attending his service tonight. Our office is working closely with Ms. Miller, Detective Zawoski on this project, and believe will make a tremendous impact in the lives of our residents, especially our seniors. Director of Community Relations, Greg McBroom, has been involved from the beginning and will continue to work closely with them. Again, let us reiterate our full support of this great initiative. Sincerely, Tyler Mays. Who's going to make the presentation? General?
What was probably a misguided decision, they asked me to do a brief introduction tonight. It's good to be with you all. For the past 5 years or so, the state of Tennessee has recognized that we and the nation have a particular problem with elder abuse. We've been working on this at the state level for several years, passing new laws that would give us new tools to combat elder abuse. And we've been successful. We have, therefore, a problem across the state. But the good news is that we are doing something unique and particular about it here in Anderson County. In that regard, in many ways, we stand in a position of leadership across the state. And you're going to hear tonight from a couple of folks that are involved in leading that effort here in Anderson County. You're also going to hear that we have a tremendous number of partners, many of whom have taken time to appear here tonight in support of what's happening here in Anderson County. So with regard to your presentation tonight, it's my honor to present Wendy Zawoski, a detective with the Oak Ridge Police Department, and Melissa Miller, the director of our new Family Justice Center. Melissa comes to us as a former educator and was recruited into her role as director, having been an advocate for domestic violence victims here in Anderson County. She has a heart for victims and a passion to attack these issues and problems, both elder abuse, domestic violence, and child abuse issues here in Anderson County, and we're thrilled to have her as our Family Justice Center director. I think you will be as impressed as I have been. Detective Zawoski comes to us from California, having retired as a police officer and command staff member in the Los Angeles area. Wendy is very passionate about elder abuse, and along with several other detectives from other agencies in our department, are sort of leading the rest of us in a charge to attack this problem. I'll give you an example. I told this story about her at a presentation a couple of weeks ago. As fate would have it, I was in the Capitol a month or so ago, getting ready to have a meeting, and someone from the comptroller's office passed by and asked if I had just a minute to have a quick meeting. And I said, sure. So we went into the comptroller's office and sat down in the conference room, and they proceeded to ask me a series of questions about what Wendy thought about this or what Wendy thought about that. So in a brief period of time here in Tennessee, her opinion is respected across the state and in Nashville. And we are lucky to have both of these ladies working for our elders in Anderson County. And I appreciate you taking the time to give this issue your attention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the time and the opportunity to present what we call the Anderson County Elder Abuse Program. So go ahead. I'm just going to run through. I have a quick little PowerPoint. I've done this is my 34th time that I've given a presentation to people in our communities, not only Oak Ridge, but also Anderson County, the Office of Aging. So we're just going to talk about a little bit about what elders are, some quick laws, some quick scams. We're going to learn about the SCAN program that General Clark is going to be directing, and we're going to talk to Melissa from the Family Justice Center. Okay? What's an adult in APS language, an adult is anyone 60 years or older. In criminal prosecution, that adult has to be 70 years or older. What's a vulnerable adult? It's any person over the age of 18 that need extra help, that has some sort of disability, whether it's psychological, physical, anything where they need extra help, extra care. That's what considered a vulnerable adult. I know in Oak Ridge we have Emory Valley clients, so we have population I know throughout Anderson County. We take care of everybody, from the young to the old. This is kind of hard to see. I used a census that they had to put down what kind of, how many elderly people we have in our communities. You can see United States has about 16% over the age of 65. Tennessee, 16%. Anderson County has 20%. Oak Ridge, 19%. Clinton, 20%. So we're 4+% higher than the national average for elders. And this is just statistics from the 2010 with a little bit of extra things put in it to kind of generate these kind of numbers, okay? Population over the age of 65, you can see in 2050, we're going to be over 20% in Anderson County. You have these copies of these, so I don't have to explain that, but you can see over here in the next, up to 2030 from these stats, Anderson County, the next to 2030 is going to be 25%. Knox County is going to be 19% over the age of 65. Okay, these are facts from the Tennessee Commission on Aging. There are 76 million baby boomers. 5,000 of them are abused. There's elderly abuse going on. The annual loss is about $3.5 billion a year. 3.5 billion. 1 out of 10 elders is being abused, but only 1 out of 14 actually reports that abuse. Our aging population holds a majority of the wealth in our country. We are 40 years behind with handling elderly as we are to DCS. 40 years behind. Victims who have been victimized, and per Tennessee Commission on Aging and Disability, if you're a victim, you have a 1 in 3 chance of dying sooner rather than someone who has not been victimized. Most people are ashamed to report it to their family, and I can tell you the detectives in here that I work with, Leslie Norris, Anderson County, they don't even want to tell us, they're ashamed about it. This is the fastest growing crime up there with opiate abuse. And a lot of that ties in. And this is a stat I just found in TCAD, which is Tennessee Aging and Disability. 28% of the entire population will be over the age of 60 in 2030. That's pretty daring. So what does that mean? $36.5 billion, how much is coming out of Anderson County? Okay. What makes elders vulnerable? Physical impairment, emotional issues, cognitive impairments. In here we have, can you keep pushing it? There you go. And this was one more. Here you can see this is some of the facts. I always thought that you'd be financially exploited when you're severely demented. That's not the fact, because what we've found out that more financial abuse happens with mild Alzheimer's. If something sounds like it could be good, that's when they're willing to be scammed, because they're like, well, that's plausible, this could happen. Physical abuse, more when it's moderate, and then neglect as they get more demented or have more Alzheimer's. 6 types of elder abuse exist. We also put that on your paperwork, and we do have extras if anyone in the neighborhood or out here in the community wants any of that. I'm not going to go through them because this is just a brush on what we're doing. Okay? Sir? We have to know the signs. What are the signs? Okay, signs of warning abuse, physical abuse. We all know that. Bruises, bumps, scrapes. Warning of emotional abuse. That's isolation. They don't want to see anybody. They stop visiting people. They don't want to have anything to do with anyone. Signs of neglect. They've lost weight. They're dirty. They're in an environment they can't move. Financial. The banks are noticing, they know our spending habits. All banks know our spending habits. And I'm sure if you've tried to make a purchase and you haven't let somebody know, the bank's gonna text you or call you or put a hold on it because they know how we spend our money. The banks are noticing this is what's happening. Abandonment. For me, we see it where they're not letting the adults out of their bedrooms. They're not letting them out of their bed. There's no phone call. They have no one visiting them. They're so-called locking them away, not taking care of them. Adult Protective Services, they're the people that you call, and we're gonna get into them. They're the people that you call when you wanna report abuse or neglect. Okay, caregiver means anyone that's caring for an elderly person. Confinement, like I said, keeping them in their bed, no phone, no way to get out. Okay, sir. Okay, financial exploitation. That's when you're using somebody's money. I already talked about that. And I can tell you last year in Oak Ridge, and we're trying to make this countywide, we were able to stop $230,000 from going out on a scam. But we've lost so much more than that in our community in this county. Our goal of all of us police people and banking institutions that are here, we are working hard together to try to stop that. We already talked about a relative can be someone who lives there or comes and visits and caretakes for the person. Vulnerable adult, we already talked about that. You want to talk about this really quick? Okay, this is a VAPIT team. It's mandated, state mandated that General Clark has to have somebody report every APS report that comes in. So once a month, we meet with the district attorney's office, APS, anybody that deals with our cases with elderly, and we go over them. So he knows every case that's in this county that's reported to APS or law enforcement. He knows about it. So that's just the law stating it, and I put his little picture up there, okay? I don't know if we have time for this. Well, probably, I just want you to know that even there's a little 2-minute video. I know you guys have a lot. Do you think we have a time for a 2-minute video, or should we pass till next time?
We
have
do. This
time?
is very important.
Okay, so if you click on that, this can happen. This is Mickey Rooney, and sorry you youngsters don't know who that is, but we do. You see the little mark?
In reality, being the exploitation, manipulation, and sadly, emotional blackmail of elders and vulnerable. I know it because I myself happen to be the one. My money was taken, used, what finances I had. When I asked for information, I was told that I couldn't have any information of my own. I said, what the hell were you talking about? I was told it was none of my business. And that it's none of my business, and when you're told that, you leave left to leave powerless. In my case, I was eventually and completely stripped of the ability to make even the most basic decisions. Where do we go? What do we do? Decisions everyone likes to make. Over the course of time, my daily life became unbearable. To those seniors, and especially elderly veterans, Army, Navy, Marine, like you veterans like myself, I want to tell you this. You're not alone. And you have nothing, ladies and gentlemen, to be ashamed of. You deserve. Yes, you deserve better. You all have the right to control your own life. Everyone does. You have the right to control your life and be happy. Please, for yourself, end the cycle of abuse and do not allow yourself to be silenced anymore.
So to me, that's very powerful. These are people that we grew up with. He's in the spotlight. If he's in the spotlight and it was happening to him, what about the people that aren't in the spotlight? And this is what's really important to us. I don't have to work, I choose to. This is what I love to do, and I want to speak for those who can't speak. Who's mandated reporters in Tennessee? Every one of us. Everybody here is a mandated reporter. If you see or suspect elder abuse, it doesn't have to be proven, it just has to be suspected that there's some kind of elder abuse element going on. We have to report it to APS and or law enforcement. APS and law enforcement work closely together on these cases. Okay? So APS, we do have a representative from APS. Lisa Roach is here today. This is what you need to do when we do think somebody may be abused. When you suspect an elderly person over the age of 60 or a vulnerable adult is being abused in any of those ways, physically, financially, neglected, emotionally, make a report to APS. It's not your job or anybody's job to figure out except us, the police department and APS. And I put some numbers on there. We also put the numbers on the paperwork. Okay, the impact on the victim, the health, the consequences of it. They feel helpless, depressed, increased physical disabilities, new illnesses, stress. They become now malnourished. They don't want to eat. They're ashamed. 1 out of 3 will die sooner. That's not right. They should be able to live their life. Another thing on scams, like I said, it's in there in the paperwork. I don't want to go over them. I do tell people to be careful with posting stuff on the internet, posting stuff about yourself. Have a code word with your family. So if your family goes out of town and they need help, tell them they must give you the code word. Okay? So this, Liz Batchelor drew for us a while ago about how do we make our seniors the center? Instead of all of us, all these different agencies running their own silos, how do we become center? This is what Liz Batchelor drew for us. And then this is what I created from that. This is our Anderson County's plan of action. Even though I work Oak Ridge, we work together with everybody, and I want to just stress that with you. And I'm going to ask the people that work with us that are on this list, if you could please just stand up so that the commission can see how many people on their own time came that are on that list. Could you just please introduce yourself really quickly, say where you're from, loudly.
Cherie Phillips, Anderson County Office on Aging and Senior Center.
Hi there, I'm Suzanne Sowers. I'm with the CREVA program.
Tracy Armstrong, CREVA program.
Anderson County Elder Justice Coalition.
Lisa Roach with Adult Protective Services.
John Kelly, Oak Ridge Police Department.
You too?
Linda McGee, Oak Ridge Senior Center.
Okay,
Senior Center Advisory Board of Front Ridge.
okay. Leslie?
Leslie Miller, Clinton Police Department. Catherine Sellers, DA's office.
Mike Bullworth, Police Department.
Janet Minot, Legal Aid Society. Stacy Foster, Whiteville Federal Credit Union.
Ken Morgan, Oliver Springs Police Department.
Jim Shetterly, Rocky Top Police Department.
Matt Widener, Community Development and Code Enforcement, Oak Ridge.
Andy Crabtree, Federal Investigation.
Colonel Blackwell, Oak Ridge, Code Enforcement.
Spartacus Jordan, Oak Ridge, Code Enforcement.
Carissa Keeley, Anderson County EMS.
And thank you very much. So sit down. I wanted you to know that these people came here. To show you that we're not just talking. Our plan of action, Anderson County Plan of Action, has been given to the senators. Senator Briggs, Senator Massey. They have, and they can't get away from me, as you can see. They've seen our plan. We are trying to make Anderson County a role model for the rest of Tennessee and then the rest of the state. So we are working together, and I know, Mr. Andy Crabtree, he's with the FBI, he's on the Elder Abuse Task Force. And he'll come up and talk to you in a minute and just say that we're the first people that he invited to be on his task force because we have a working model. All these people wouldn't be here today if we didn't already have a working model, okay? I wanted to now move into something that General Clark is going to be running. It's called the SCAN program. Yes, we're stealing it from Knox County, so I give them credit. They said we could, where we're going to have volunteers, senior volunteers or other volunteers going out and visiting people in their homes. So they're not isolated, not alone, that there's somebody there to check on them. This is going to be a volunteer program that we're going to serve hundreds of our people, okay? What the volunteers will do is go visit them, they'll do surveys, make sure they're okay, that they're eating. If they see anything going wrong, they'll call us. So it's just more eyes. It's just more eyes for us, a longer extension for us to reach out. All of the police agencies in Anderson County are doing it. And that's very rare that in every county, all police agencies work together on this, but this is all under General Clark. And then this is just some things that we expect from our SCAN volunteers. I don't know if it's going to be you, but we can go through that later. So we just expect them to be there. They're going to be run. They're going to be under each police department. They're going to be vetted. So we send out people in Anderson County that represent us and this county. Okay, and then Melissa's going to talk over for a minute.
I have 22 slides. I'll go through really quickly. No, I'm just kidding. 3. It's just 3. All right. I put up here all the MOU partners we currently have. So we're funded as a Family Justice Center under the Office of Criminal Justice Programs. We're required to have specific partners. That's law enforcement, legal aid, the DA's office, and an advocacy group. And we have above and beyond that number, and many of them are focused on elder abuse services. We have some pending partners coming down the line as well. You know, we are talking tonight about elder abuse, but the Family Justice Center is not only going to be focusing on elder abuse, it's domestic violence, sexual assault, and child abuse. And initially, that's what the funding was for, was domestic violence. We're going to be the first Family Justice Center in the state to open that will have elder abuse services in place when we open. Please, thank you. So we are excited because a lot of great things are happening in Anderson County. Detective Zolkowski's told us about a lot of them, as did General Clark. I think the first thing is making Anderson County safer. So I think this coordinated effort, I mean, everybody in the room, I want you to know, I emailed them Friday to say, can you come? So not only is this turnout great just generally, but Friday emails for a Monday night meeting makes my heart grow in size. So I think it's amazing.
With me when we get back. So that's why they're all here, because they know we're bulldogs, both of us, bulldogs in this.
No, and they are passionate and they care, and I love that we are so coordinated. So that coordination, I think, translates into looking like preventative care. So we are getting the word out in advance. The Family Justice Center isn't open yet, but you can see that we're coordinated. It is, in my opinion, a public safety initiative that we're working towards. We're continuing to form partnerships under the Family Justice Center. So, I mean, every week I'm at a different community meeting. I'm talking with different people. We'll meet with ADFAC later this week to talk about if they can come in. Where I will be meeting with someone at the Career Center to see if they can come in and put services in place so that we can also set people up for success once they flee. So you flee a domestic violence situation or you need help if you've left some violence when you are an older adult and maybe you need some assistance with a resume or something like that. So we'll be doing that. And then we are expanding our outreach efforts. So General Clark has, along with the entire state of Tennessee, a public service campaign about elder abuse. I stuck a flyer in there for you, and I brought flyers for everybody here if you'd like to look at them. Our outreach has extended to Oracle, where both General Clark and Detective Zolkowski have come and spoke on elder abuse with a large number of our seniors. I had the opportunity to speak to the women of Altrusa. I'll be speaking to the League of Women Voters. We just have a lot of opportunities to get out there and talk about what's happening. We have an amazing, thriving VAPIT team that is a model for the state, which we've already discussed. And then the other thing that I'm excited about is that we have a charter for a 501c3, so we are continuing to move forward with that Justice Center being open and providing services. I think I talked very quickly. Go ahead.
And I have two more slides and that's it. I always end everything, my presentations with how to just protect yourselves. We did put something in your flyers and we can hand it out, but we just want people to be very cognizant about the information they have, what they give out. As we tell this to the seniors, to the youth, to everybody, don't carry personal information, don't answer the phone. We're trying to stop these scams before they come. We're working with the banks. We've had meetings with poor Stacy all the time. We're having a meeting. Don't send out any money if you think it's a scam. Call me. We were able to stop one customer that was going to take out $30,000 for a scam because the bank people trusted us, put me on speaker, ran out to the car, gave the phone to the lady. We were able to have her come back in, tell her that it was a scam, and we saved her from sending out $30,000 on a scam. Same kind of thing with the $200,000. We don't want to violate anyone's rights. We want you to be able to do what you want with your money, but we want our money to stay here with our seniors or stay here with their family and not be sent overseas. So our goal this year is over $1 million. So we're working on that. We'll come back next year and let you know how we do on that, okay? So this is just one more thing. You can opt out. All that information is on your paperwork so you don't get all that mail. I just want to let you know that June 15th, it was Elder Abuse Awareness. I think we all had our proclamation at Oak Ridge. Anderson County had a proclamation. We got a sign made. I copied Leslie. She had one made out there for Clinton PD. For you guys, we did one this year. We'd like to paint the town purple so everybody knows that we're a gold star, setting the gold standard for how elder abuse is going to be handled. Okay? I just say that my moral test from Hubert Humphrey. It was once said that the moral test of government is how the government treats those who are in the dawn of life, the children, those in the twilight, the elderly, and those in the shadows of life, the sick and the needy and the handicapped. So this is old government for all of us. That's who we all care about. Okay? So summary, call APS. Anybody listening, anybody out here, anybody that you know that you need us to continue an investigation. Be a volunteer for the Anderson SCAN program so we can continue this movement. Be active, make a difference. We have to work together. I mean, General Clark told me once that I've dragged everybody along because I'm a little rambunctious, as you can see, but everybody has willingly come. If you don't see this kind of connection in any kind of county like this, we have to stand up, work together to protect those who can't stand up for themselves. Okay, so any questions you have? We have people here from all parts that can answer those questions. And Andy, would you like to come up? Mr. Crabtree, come up and he can give you a 1-second brief on what he's doing.
Thank you, gentlemen, for letting me speak today. I'll start off by introducing myself again. Andy Crabtree. I'm a supervisory special agent with the FBI here in Knoxville Division. I'm actually from East Tennessee, so I'm not an outsider coming in, so I have a vested interest in our community. DOJ from Washington, D.C. sent out an initiative to address the elder fraud abuse in our country. It's an initiative that we take seriously. We pulled our resources together from a federal level. We created a working group with the Secret Service, U.S. Postal Service, IRS, and ourselves, along with the U.S. Attorney's Office, and we started developing some ideas and plans of how we can address this. One of the first things we thought of was bringing in our local and state federal partners, and the first persons we reached out to was Oak Ridge PD and Wendy. Everywhere we showed up to provide some education or get the input from our community, Wendy was there. So it came to, from the FBI standpoint, I learned quickly that Anderson County and the law enforcement people and community partners we have in your community is way ahead of the game. So in doing so, the FBI is formalizing a task force, and Oak Ridge PD is the first person we invited, and we got agreements with the chief of police to start the task force. We're going to reach out to multiple communities, reach out to multiple law enforcement agencies within our East Tennessee, Knoxville City, Sevier County, all the way up to Johnson City area, to bring in other additional resources to try to fight this problem with one face, one message, to include education to our community, as well as allowing not just the FBI, but our local partners to have a longer reach. Because as you know, a lot of the financial scams reach into our community. And sometimes, our local partners can't reach out because they just don't have the manpower or the jurisdiction to reach out. We're going to bring agents in like Wendy, deputize them as federal officers so they have that reach. And hopefully, working together, we'll be able to have a larger impact, not just saving our community, but saving the funds and money going out of our community to foreign powers or foreign countries. Do you have any questions, gentlemen?
Commissioner Meade.
Yeah, one of the things that's been a pet peeve of mine, and I think it's direct related to this, is like we talk about the do not call registry. Well, you put a number on there, they don't use that number anyhow. What can be done about the fact that our phone companies allow overseas and out-of-state callers to display any number they want when they call you?
Yeah, that is a very good question. However, that is completely out of our control because, sometimes what it's called is spoofing.
Yeah.
The phone companies really don't have a lot of control over that. They go into the cyber networks and are able to manipulate the systems and spoof people's phones. It's a difficult situation, and as soon as we're able to identify a phone line, we're able to contact the phone company and then we can take that number down. But as far as them infiltrating the phone systems, it costs money to upgrade the securities, and as everybody knows, including this county, money is hard to come by sometimes. And a lot of times, the first thing that goes is security to some of these systems are so vulnerable, like our phone systems. So it's a great question, it's a great problem, but there's not a lot we can do about it unless we build that infrastructure up, and it costs money and dedication to that.
Well, obviously, the scammers understand that nobody wants to do anything about it because I get probably 6 calls a day that the number is spoofed. And as a county commissioner, if I get a local number, I'm kind of obligated to answer it. Okay, and all of a sudden, as soon as I answer, I start to realize, no, wait a minute, they want my credit card numbers. They get all these, they start asking for personal information.
Absolutely.
They want to know they start asking questions that are clearly, they're looking for an in to try to get you into something. And if something's not done about that, I think that's a major vulnerability that they're going to continue to deploy. Because it's, I've gotten a call from my daughter's number, and it was a scammer.
I understand. I get a call from the FBI saying they want money, so, and I'm the FBI.
So, and I know that the government is also trying to, when they find out who these people are, I've seen on the news and in the media, they're giving them fines. Some company just got a $2 billion fine for doing these robocalls, as they're calling them. So and that's what we're doing. We're educating seniors, saying if you don't know the number, don't pick it up. I understand
Yeah,
what
but
you're
if it's
saying,
your
that
daughter's
you're
number, you probably pick it up.
Probably, but she usually texts me first, so.
Yeah.
So we're gonna try to outsmart them. That's what we're working on as a partnership with all these people here.
And like I said, I understand your question. It's a problem across the board. It's not just phone numbers. It's spoofing and email accounts.
Oh, yeah.
So changing one letter in an email account is, causing damage to millions of dollars and saying, hey, send us money to this pertaining to a bill.
Yeah.
Our whole community is getting, killed on spoofing of phone numbers and email accounts. Again, the cyber world is way ahead of us sometimes, and we're trying to keep up. But we
Okay.
are working together to fight it.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any question for anybody we have here? We have APS, we have banking, CREVA, all police agencies. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you very much. I know we all say thank you for the time and listening to this. Yes, sir.
Detective?
Yes, sir.
On behalf of this committee, I would like to commend you on your overwhelming dedication and this whole committee that you put together in the general in what you're doing, and I commend you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Next, we have a presentation by Senior Center Board Member Ron Meredith.
Thank you, gentlemen, for letting me speak. If you happen to see our Budget Committee meeting, this is going to be very similar to that. Some new facts, but first thing I want to do is tell you a little bit about our 501c3 that we've set up. The Senior Center had been trying to set up a 501c3 in an effort to be able to apply for more grants, in an effort to be able to fundraise more readily. People seem to be more willing to donate money if you're a nonprofit. So through Cherie's efforts and some help from local attorney, we got that set up. And what we do is we simply serve whatever the seniors and Senior Center Office on Aging needs. That's our job. Our job is to be there, to be somewhat of a help. We fundraise. To date, I think since we started the 501c3, the seniors have raised $43,000, almost $44,000. So that's all we're there to do. I know early on some had thought maybe we were going to be there to act as, to purchase buildings or, to operate the Senior Center. We can't do that. If we did that, we would lose our Office on Aging grants and stuff like that. We have no desire to do that. We're simply here or there to be people from the community that have broad different experiences that can all contribute to bettering the Senior Center and helping any way that we can. So do you guys have any questions about the 501c3, about the nonprofit that I could try and answer for you? Okay. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ron. What's the name of it again?
Partners, what is it, Cherie? I forget it every time. Anderson County Senior Services.
Thank you.
Ron, would you mind closing that door, please?
Okay. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay.
That's just, thank you.
Great. A while back, I was asked to serve on this board, and, I thought I had a pretty good understanding of what our senior center did and the Office on Aging, because I would invite them to the radio station once a month. And we would go over the calendar and everything else. But until I got involved in this, to see the needs that is out there, I just didn't understand it. I'm not there yet, so it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. But in doing this, it's why I decided to put forth all the effort that I had to try and better the situation. Because no matter what your decision is here tonight, I promise, it's a terrible situation down there. One bathroom for that many people. You have 3 times more space in this room than we have at the Senior Center. So that said, we started looking for a place. And you guys remember 3 years ago, I think it was, there was a committee put together. Mayor was looking for land, and then there were people that served on that committee that were looking for a place. Everybody recognized there was an issue, and we ended up buying 205 Main. All good intentions, but we know where we are with that. And it seems going forward that that's been attached directly to what we do or do not do for seniors. That mistake, that building. And I don't know, I can't say that, I'm not agreeing with you, but I understand how it's gotten directly tied to it. But that said, I really wish that we could separate the issues. I've got an idea if you want to combine the issues, but we went out and started looking for places. There was a place that came up by the interstate, the Church of Latter-day Saints. It was a great opportunity, I felt like. I was in support of that, in that they were going to offer us a nearly $900,000 building for a third of that. And I know that some of the commissioners were worried because that's a long way to drive, just like some are worried that Mariner Point is a long way to drive. We also, in this search, the Armory we come up with that, the building up by the interstate, we come up with that, and the building at Mariner Point kind of came to us. I was approached about the church early on from some of its membership, said, hey, you guys have been looking, it's been in the news and the paper and everything else, this would suit your needs. So that being said, I just wanted to tell you what I found out on some of the objections that I've been told so far by some of our commissioners. Worried about the seniors and worried about the traffic going in and out of the subdivision down there. So I contacted the city of Clinton and found out we've had 3 accidents down there. That's all. No fatalities. So you know, that's a very, very busy thoroughfare, and that subdivision, especially if you're turning left, it's difficult. But to only have 3 accidents down there and no fatalities, I think that, that it's obviously doable. We can, somebody said, well, now we're going to be putting seniors down there. And I don't know that the inference is that as we get older, maybe we don't drive as well. Maybe that's true, but if you guys have been in Mariner Point, it's made up of more older citizens than it is younger. I know that because I've got kids, and we just had some folks move in with children, and my boys are like excited out of their mind because the whole time they've lived there, we haven't had a lot of young folks living there. So I think that the seniors have been able to navigate that entrance prior, and the City of Clinton statistics back it up. Also, Meridian Way, that's off kind of behind the daycare, they have their own homeowners association. And in their last meeting, they came to the agreement they're going to once again ask the City of Clinton to get with the state and look at placing a red light there. Commissioner Meredith had said back 10 years or so ago that was floated, but that the state didn't want to do that because it was just a three-turn intersection. But with technology changes and stuff, that may be different. I don't know. The traffic count, in the last 10 years, we probably added 100 homes down there. So that would also justify it. Too many cars at the church parking lot, or too many, the traffic going in and out of there, not necessarily because of danger, but because of just too much of it. I spoke with the church staff and asked about how many people they had when they had their events. And they had numerous events a week. Their main sanctuary, they would have 250 people, and then the surrounding offices, and they didn't know exactly because those were classrooms. So you're probably 300 people in there coming in and out of that subdivision every week. Again, we've had 3 accidents. And I'd say that, I don't know all of their congregation, but I would say that they have elderly people in their congregation as well. So 13 years, when it was New Life Fellowship, and now for 13 years, we've had hundreds of people going in and out of there multiple times a day, and no fatalities, and only 3 wrecks according to the City of Clinton. I talked to a couple commissioners that have gotten calls, and one commissioner used a number. I've gotten about 40 calls on this. And if you assume that all of those calls were negative, and if you assume that all of those calls came from the Mariner Point subdivision, there are 340 residences in Mariner Point, 340 homes. If we just have 2, that's 680 people. If you take 40 out of that, that's 5.8% that's making a decision that the rest of the neighborhood's going to live with. And I've tried to get out and ask. Any of you that's heard me on the radio, I've asked a number of people, and the biggest thing was they were not aware of it. And when I told them, and I didn't talk about all negative things, there are going to be lots of traffic, but I just said it's a senior center, and explained it. I haven't had anybody that's been against it as of yet. I've lived there for 14 years, and like I said, I talked to quite a few people. And as I said when I first started, I know that 205 Main has been married to this issue. And I know that you guys have tried, twice to sell it. We've tried to do that. I know that Commissioner Isbell spoke to Rusty Wallace people. I'll just say retail, I won't say Rusty Wallace, but if you do sell that building for a loss, and you sell it to somebody that's going to bring it up, make it nice, remodel it, and they're going to sell whatever widgets out of it, if they do $5 million worth of business a year, which I think if what we were told Mr. Wallace was going to use it for, if he does, and he's running 9 different auto dealerships, and they're associated with that one, you're going to get about, this county, we get about $46,000 a year in sales tax. So in essence, you're giving them a 7-year TIF is what you're doing. Because in 7 years, you will have generated $322,000 in new sales tax that you don't have right now. We don't have. So if you do have to sell it for a loss, and whether it be auto parts or whether it be whatever, if you generate that much money, if you generate twice that much, it'll take half as long. If you generate half as much, twice as long, but you will get it back in taxes. And at least we'll be able to make it, not an eyesore, get it up, get it working. let it contribute some tax dollars to the community. And it opens the door so that you can consider 96 Mariner Point outside of that. And I understand, like I'm, as all of you know, I'm keenly aware of everything with 205 Main. But I think that would be a great way going forward. The month of October, that we had sales tax collections that was given to us in November. We ended up with, and in December for the month of November, we had a $417,724.08 of an increase over the same time last year. I just got today the numbers that were deposited for what we generated in December that I think it deposited the 20th of January. In the December of 2018, we generated $197,000. In December of 2019, we generated $538,855, $341,000 increase. And I got to trying to do research. It looks to me like we actually get to keep in our general fund what would be about 30% of that. From the $538,000 new sales tax dollars, looks like $169,000 would be what we would keep. As of right now, property taxes were $3 million to the good from where we were last year. And as I told you when I first started, the seniors went out and raised $43,000. So we've got the money. It's there. The county has the money. You heard the need. Today on the radio, Felicia said they get about 5 calls a month of elder abuse, wanting to know what to do, who to talk to. And they guide them, assumingly to this agency that was just speaking tonight. But there's a need for it where we are right now, and I know you gentlemen have heard all this over and over again, but there is a tremendous need, and this is an opportunity that I really, as a business person, you stand and I looked it up again on the tax records. It's almost $1.1 million on the tax records right now that building is listed for. It's had every check you can have. I mean, we've inspected and re-inspected and ADA inspected, and some of you went down and looked at it, and trying to make sure that we don't stumble into something bad. But when you take a $1.1 million building and property, and let us have it for $500,000, and the opportunity that it has multiple uses, you could host, some of our civic organizations or something that maybe they need a bigger place to meet after 5 o'clock, that could be used. And the senior center, Cherie, and they're perfectly willing to accommodate that. I think you guys had even floated having commission meetings down there. So I asked that we went through budget, they approved the way that it could be financed. They approved that, sent that. And I just asked that you consider going ahead and letting the mayor put together a contract proposed to them. And we did, not we, Chairman Isabel and Mayor Frank did sit down with them to see if they would take the $450,000 if it was brought to them, and they said no. And then produced the letter that you probably all saw where they showed this is how much we inherited of their debt, and we put $218,000 more dollars into renovations, and then we acquired another 3 acres of property. So they're in it well over $600,000. I think they truly do want to be a community partner. So my ask to you is that you will consider giving her the permission to do that, and then when it gets to full commission, to give us your support. I don't think you'll regret it. I don't know if you're getting a lot of calls from constituents or not, but just from what you've heard tonight, you can see it's needed. And the social aspect of it, the educational aspect of it, I think sometimes we overlook. It's not just bingo. There are a lot of educational things that we have available to us, some we can't do right now. You can't have 2 things going on at the senior center now. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Mr. Yeager.
2 questions and a comment.
Yes, sir.
Has the Mariner Point HOA taken an official stand or survey?
No, not to my knowledge.
Okay. Your $5 million estimate, where did that come from?
Estimate from when
if Rusty Wallace or someone else took it over, where did that number come from?
They estimated that if they did a parts store out of there and they ran all their parts for all 9 dealerships, that would be an estimate of what they would do.
Okay. And if the church can't sell it for $750,000, how can it be worth $1.1 million?
You have to take that up with Johnny Alley. That's what he's got it on the books for. That's what,
It's worth what they can sell it, so that's my opinion. If it can't be sold for $750,000, it can't be worth $1 million.
well, they did back off pursuing selling it while they gave us, I think, 60 days while this body considered doing it. And again, we're now, what, in the 4th month? So it's back out on the market. I don't know how vigorously they're pursuing it. I would assume so. I would assume that they are.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Frank.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item on the agenda is a resolution declaring support for the Second Amendment of the United States of America, our Constitution, and I distributed to you all, I had a meeting with Mr. Phillips back here, and he recommended a couple of changes, and so I distributed that copy to you. One of the changes was changing the order on the heading, which does sound a lot better. So he was recommending a resolution declaring support of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America. And then the only other change would be in the now therefore be it resolved that the Anderson County Board of Commissioners hereby declared Anderson County, Tennessee to be a constitutional Second Amendment sanctuary county. And so the word constitutional be added. And I do have that draft that I distributed to you all if you did want to make that change.
I think Mr. Stephen Phillips would like to speak to
Sure.
there before we get a motion.
I will move out of the way.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. Stephen Phillips, District 3 is where I live, Mike Miller Lane. Josh is one of my commissioners. I remember about 2 months or so ago, I was talking to our other commissioner about just this very subject, about having some type of endeavor to show support and to put into effect some type of support for our Second Amendment and constitutional rights. And I'm surprised and pleasantly pleased and proud to see it got this far in this short amount of time. I'd like to read part of an email from a director of Tennessee County Services Association that came in just last week. And he said, in Tennessee Code annotated section 3917, 1314, the state legislature very clearly preempts any local regulation of firearms and ammunition in our state. And the local resolution attempts to regulate firearms in some manner contrary to state law. It would be unenforceable under the statute since the General Assembly has expressly preempted the field of the regulation of firearms. There is a long history of court cases which have ruled the local governments cannot adopt local regulations that are in conflict with state law. And I have a copy of that regulation, and it was quite wordy, and it is ineffective and explains a lot. And I looked up one other thing, is the supremacy clause, Article 6, Section 4 of the Constitution states, this Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land, and judges in every state shall be bound by thereby. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding, the clause is commonly referred to as a supremacy clause. And that's just giving support and more emphasis to the fact that I appreciate what this body's trying to do, that we can get this resolution put in force. Thank y'all.
Commissioner Creasy.
Any question by anybody?
Commissioner Creasy.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay,
That's a good presentation.
appreciate it.
Yeah. And appreciate your service to our country. I have had some concerns about the Second Amendment, recognizing or focusing our attention on it as the way we're doing. And I've prepared a statement I'd like to make, and I also have brought around to everyone here an alternate resolution that I'd like to see us, if we're going to have a resolution on the amendments, I'd like to have this alternate resolution considered. But I'll go with my prepared comment first, if you'll allow me. On the battlefields of Korea, 33,746 soldiers paid the ultimate price. 103,284 were wounded, and 8,177 were missing in action. Worldwide, there were 54,246 that lost their lives during this short conflict. During the Vietnam War, there were 58,479 lives lost. Altogether, there have been over 1.1 million lives lost during our wars and conflicts. The focus on one single amendment over all of others could lower the importance of all and the whole and diminish the respect for the ultimate cost of our freedoms guaranteed under these amendments. They have been paid with the blood of our military men and women and by our many courageous men and women who have paid with their lives and personal sacrifices over the 200-plus years. The price was paid on March 5, 1770 on King Street with the Boston Massacre, and also by the bombing of the African-American 16th Street Baptist Church in 1963, and from the assassination of President John Kennedy in 1964, and his brother Robert in 1968, and by the assassination of Medgar Evers and Martin Luther King Jr., and the World War sit-ins in Greensboro in the spring of 1960, to the Mississippi freedom murders of James Chaney, Andrew Goodman, and Michael Swerner in 1964. Our freedoms have remained strong and have been written with the blood of those who raised courage to stand up and defend them. I respectfully ask that we not pass a resolution focusing on just one single amendment and freedom. If we have to pass a resolution, please consider an alternate, one supporting all freedoms, much like the draft submitted before you. Thank you.
Commissioner Meade, did you want to speak?
Yeah, this gentleman just set up was quoting from Tennessee law 3917, 1314. However, he forgot the section of that law that was the preemption law in Tennessee about local regulation of firearms. He forgot paragraph A that says, except as otherwise provided by state law, specifically provided in subsection B, the General Assembly preempts the whole field of regulation of firearms, okay? But then when you go down to section B, it says, any city, county, town, municipality, metropolitan government is expressly authorized to regulate by ordinance, resolution, policy, rule, or other enactment the following. The first one is the carrying of firearms by employees or independent contractors of a city, county, town, municipality, or metropolitan government when acting in the course of the scope of their employment or contract, except as provided by 3917, 1313, which says they cannot prevent the storage of firearms in somebody's car in a parking lot. So whether the preemption law does remove the authority to counties and cities for a lot of things, there is a list of 4 items that are specifically authorized for regulation by cities, counties, and metropolitan governments. Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes, I'm asking support for the resolution that was submitted in great respect and deference to Commissioner Creasy. I appreciate his service to our nation and his position on County Commission. I have no opposition to perhaps taking this resolution that he has brought up at next month's meeting, but I notice, for instance, there is a statement in there that we are free from search and seizure. I think that's unlawful search and seizure, so there's a couple things that we need to correct in there. But I'm not opposed to improving that and looking at that next month, but I do believe that the folks in Anderson County, in light of many of the attacks on the Second Amendment, are looking for passage of this particular resolution. But again, I'm happy to work with you, myself, on that other one to support that and perhaps perfect it and bring it back next month.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion to accept the resolution as presented?
So there's going to be another resolution?
No. His is, he just wants to, his draft, he wanted to substitute. I'm still requesting passage of the resolution that is before you, that we had a vote of last month that I draft. His is just a support for all the amendments to the Constitution, but I noticed that, for instance, in the second clause that says freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, like, for instance, the free from search and seizure, we've had our law enforcement here tonight, they probably would say, well, no, you're not entirely free from search and seizure. So just we can, fix those things and make a statement in support of all the amendments to the Constitution next month.
Okay. So why am I not seeing
The amended?
the current amended draft for the Second Amendment support? I thought I printed out the entire agenda, but
The only changes
Yeah.
are there,
Yeah.
and then that additionally
Yeah,
were
yeah.
constitutional. I thought I gave it to you, I apologize. I gave it to Chairman Isbell, didn't I?
yeah.
Thank you.
Subject to those 2 changes, the outline, I make a motion to adopt Resolution 2002-801.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I'd like to hear the motion again, exactly what he's saying.
Okay, Commissioner Mead?
Okay, I have in my hand this Resolution 2002-801. And it's whereas it's specific to the Second Amendment of the Constitution adopted in 1791. And Section 26, Article 1, Section 26 of the Tennessee Constitution, which is almost more limiting than the Second Amendment in the state of Tennessee. And it quotes a couple of the court cases, including McDonald versus Chicago, affirming the individual right to keep and bear arms. And Supreme Court ruling and other legislation supporting the Second Amendment. And if you didn't get a copy, you can take this one because I've read it now.
I've got extra if anyone needs it.
Yeah. That's all it says.
Commissioner Wandale?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just trying to understand, because if we're going to do another resolution that supports the Constitution and all the amendments, why would it make sense for us to just pass one tonight?
The citizens of Anderson County have requested passage of this because of proposed legislation in Nashville and some other legislation around the country that is an attack on Second Amendment rights.
I understand that there's a apparent attack on Second Amendment rights, I haven't seen it in Tennessee myself, but I understand it may exist in Virginia or California or wherever those places may be. You know, it's been said, and I talked to a constituent this week, and, you know, we all accept the oath of office to uphold the Constitution. We stand right here, we put our hand up, and we commit to uphold the Constitution, and every one of us have done it, including the mayor. I'm not here to debate the right to carry arms or say it's wrong. I'm just trying to understand if we're gonna look at doing one that supports all of them. I personally prefer to wait to do that one. But I understand what you're saying. You're saying the Anderson County citizens are requesting this be done, and I've had a constituent in my district ask for it too. Again, personally, not as a commissioner, as a taxpayer living in Anderson County, I don't feel my rights to the Second Amendment are being threatened. I feel very secure walking into this building, and I don't carry, don't feel the need to carry. I know others do, and I respect that opinion of them. I hope they respect mine, but they don't have to, and I also understand that. So instead of me just saying what I think, I'll be happy to support this if it makes people feel better, but I already support it when I take the oath of office. So it seems redundant to me, and seems like we're spending a lot of time and a lot of research, a lot of money, actually, because time is money, to do things like this when we could be doing things like a senior center, taking care of the highways, the schools, the roads, the things that we're responsible to do as elected officials in our capacity. So I guess, Mr. Chairman, my question is, if this resolution, we're needing to vote on it right now, 20-02-801, has the law director approved this to form before we take action? Because my concern is I don't want to open up any kind of liability for our county to start having to have debates in court and then spend the taxpayers' dollars to defend. And again, in my opinion, we all have already upheld the Constitution, taking the office. So I guess I want to ask your opinion, law director, on this resolution. Have you seen the latest revised version? Could you hand this? Could you hand that down to the law?
Take a look at it if you guys want to vote on it tonight, but I've not seen it.
That's a little bit surprising to me, Mr. Chairman, that we're getting ready to vote on a resolution that we're not running through the law director. I'm not saying he's the best law director in the world, but he is our law director, and I think it would be nice to have his opinion on it, and maybe he's going to be able to quickly read through it and give us a thumbs up. And again, I'll support it, just so we can move on and do what we need to do, and I'll support it. But I'm in favor of Commissioner Creasy and what he said. I feel like over 200 plus years ago, our forefathers fought for the Constitution, and for me personally, I feel like we're slapping them in the face, saying, what you did 200 years ago wasn't good enough. We're going to do it again because we think we can do it better. That's my thinking, okay? I'll support it, but again, I don't think we need to do this, but I'll certainly support it so the people I represent who want it will feel more secure. Jay, to you.
Mr. Chairman, just as a little additional note, there are many versions of these resolutions that are out that most of the counties surrounding us have passed. And I did, when it was authorized for me to draft a resolution, because Oak Ridge is the largest municipality in the county, I did model the draft to match Roane County's resolution, and they passed theirs in June of 2019. The one addition there was the addition of the Tennessee Constitution, Article 1, Section 26. So other than that, that's all that it differs, other than saying Anderson County Board of Commissioners. So I felt, since that had passed in Roane, and there is part of Oak Ridge in Roane County, that would be the proper thing to do to make it match Roane County's. And the resolution was in the agenda packet. The only changes that I'm proposing tonight are what Mr. Phillips recommended, those two. The word order on the United States Constitution, and then the word constitutional.
You need an opinion right now? I appreciate what you said, Commissioner Wandell. It's very thoughtful. I would change a couple things, certainly the alignment of a few of the whereas clauses. I'd like to define what a sanctuary county is. That's the part I'm kind of troubled with. As far as legal form, it's proper in its legal form. I'd like to clean it up myself, but my question is, what is a Second Amendment sanctuary county? I'm certainly an advocate of the Second Amendment, always have been, and I think every one of us took an oath of office to support that Second Amendment and the entire U.S. Constitution and the Tennessee Constitution. But, Mayor, do you know what a Second Amendment sanctuary county is?
I don't think there is a legal definition of a sanctuary county that I'm aware of, but I think the intention is, in declaring the support for the Second Amendment, it's a reaffirmation of the constitutional principles, a reaffirmation of the oath of office that we as elected officials, from the sheriff to the county commissioners to the mayor, that we take. So I'm certain that that is what is meant.
I'm certainly for that. I'd just like to define what a sanctuary county is and what does it do for us, in essence. But I'm certainly for the intent of this, and I appreciate your time in drafting it. But we need to clean up a couple of the alignments of the whereas clauses, and I'd like to define this, what a Second Amendment sanctuary county is. Does that impede the ability for law enforcement officers to enforce firearms laws? Does that give citizens more of a constitutional protections? I don't think we have the authority to do that under the Supremacy Clause or the preemption statute. But as far as the form of this, legal form, I think it's acceptable.
Commissioner Meade.
Part of this started 3 years ago, where in Senator Briggs, Knox County, okay, introduced and passed into law Tennessee state law, okay, that basically says that anyone in the state of Tennessee involved in law enforcement is prohibited from enforcing or spending any funds or using any personnel to enforce laws that would violate the Second Amendment or Section 26, Article 1 of the Tennessee Constitution. So that's already law. And so part of our oath is obeying the laws of the state of Tennessee. And the state of Tennessee already says it's illegal to use manpower, finances, or resources to enforce laws that would violate the Second Amendment or the Tennessee state law on guns, Article 1, Section 26. And so Second Amendment County is simply saying that we agree that we will not use resources and we will not use public funds to enforce laws that are deemed to be in violation of the Second Amendment or Tennessee state law. I mean, we're just saying that we will do the things we've already sworn to do. And the Second Amendment has not changed. Now, there's been some arguments about the meaning, and that'll go on forever, but the U.S. Supreme Court pretty much has defined what it means at this point. And so that would be defined as the current meaning of the Second Amendment, I think. Thank you.
If you want to pass this tonight in draft form, I can certainly add some clarity to it. And it's missing a quotation mark in the second whereas clause, in quotation, and then the whereas, the last two need to be set up properly. And
Yeah,
then
it is formatted improperly.
And again, I'd like to define this, what a Second Amendment sanctuary county is, but if that's doesn't exist, then we're left with that. But I do appreciate the time the mayor put into this. It's certainly something that I would support myself.
Mr. Chairman.
Hold on, Jerry. Commissioner McCamey.
Jay, I asked the same question. What is the sanctuary county? And what I've been told by the people who have contacted me about it is that we're basically saying we will not pass any resolutions or regulations or any kind of control over anything that the Second Amendment allows.
Mhm.
What's allowed under the Second Amendment will not do anything to jeopardize that. And that's the,
It's probably a good definition.
that's the best definition I could come up with. We're just saying we're not going to do anything that's in violation of the Second Amendment.
Yeah. That's what we find in the preemption statute and the supremacy clause too, but I understand.
Okay, I think we got somebody from the audience that'd like to speak.
My name is Eric Keller. I'm a retired United States Army chaplain and trained with infantry, armor, engineers. Mr. Chairman, I know about weapons. I know about the amendments. I'm also a political scientist, graduating from the University of Tennessee with my doctorate in American politics in 2015. So I've studied this extensively. One of the first things I have to do is to agree with Jerry Creasy, or Commissioner Creasy, that all of the amendments 1 through 27 are critical to this nation. When I gave my oath to the Constitution of the United States, it was for that Constitution and for Amendment 1 through 27, not any individual one. Now, you talked about supporting Tennessee, and I agree with that. It's important that we do that. Now, I'm sure there are bills out there talking about freedom of speech, freedom of religion, the right to vote. All of those are other amendments just as critical as the second. So if we as a county are going to step forward and say, by God, we are going to make sure we celebrate that this county will not make any laws or any resolutions against any amendment, it should be all of them, not just one. I know that the founders did not rank order the particular amendments when they put them there. Each one was critical to them. To say that the Second Amendment, it takes precedent over any of them is an insult to the founders and to those of us who swore an oath to the entirety of the Constitution. I very much think that to focus on one amendment over the others dishonors that. And I urge that an alternate resolution already read that celebrates all of the freedoms, not just the Second Amendment, be considered. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for
Name and address, please.
Yes. My name is Charles Colburn. I'm at 110 Robin Lane in Clinton, out in the county. I've heard a lot of different things said tonight about it, but the one thing that's not being said is that all these other amendments right now are not under attack in our country. It's not just East Tennessee or West Tennessee or the eastern part of the United States or the western. Right now, Virginia is a powder keg waiting to be the match struck and blow up. That's the way the people feel there. The government of Virginia is passing laws that are totally unconstitutional, and they're coming after our guns. Now, what happened to set it off for the Revolutionary War? The British came after the people's guns and they got an answer that they didn't expect. The people stood up for their right to keep their weapons. What has happened throughout history when a dictator wanted to take the country over? He took the guns from the people. This is what is going on in our country today. Do I believe in all the amendments? I certainly do. But what we're asking for is a statement by our county representatives to take a stand and say that we will not stand for the violation of the Second Amendment at this time. They take the Second Amendment, they're already trying to tell us what we can and cannot say. That's the First Amendment. You take the second away and get ready for some more. Just, we do ask you to pass this resolution that has been presented tonight. It's a simple statement that says that you believe in the oath that you took. You know, so many times politicians, and we think of them as being the people in Washington and the people in Nashville. So many times when they're running, if you ask them, do you back the Second Amendment? They'll tell you, oh yeah, I believe in the Second Amendment. But when it comes down to it, they're lying. That's all it is. They're lying because they do not believe in the Second Amendment as written. They want to say, I believe in the Second Amendment, but. Well, that but tells me that you don't believe in that Second Amendment. All we're asking is that this body take that stand and pass this resolution, making us a Second Amendment sanctuary. That means that our sheriff department won't be coming out on a red flag law that's illegal, won't be coming out to confiscate weapons, and won't be coming out turning off our power like the governor of Virginia has threatened, turn off our electricity, turn off our water. I mean, Virginia is a classic example of how these people want to take our rights. And if we lose the second, we'll lose the first. They've already beaten on that, and it's happening all over the country, not only in Virginia, but in Washington State and some of the other western states. We do ask that this resolution be passed and go on record as supporting not only, it will be the Second Amendment that we're supporting, but that is a start. And we will defend that Second Amendment. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
Tim, I'd like to say one more thing to everybody in this room. I think the term sanctuary has a different meaning to each and every one of us. What I might consider to be sanctuary for the Second Amendment might be different from what Jay thinks, what you think yourself, Tim. But it's all, from what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing, it's all important in their own ways to each and every one of us. Thank you.
Hi. Excuse me, I have laryngitis. I'm Hillary Haverkamp. I'm at 201 Oak Road in Norris. I think that the fuzziness of the term sanctuary city seems really crucial here. It would seem premature. I don't know too much about politics, I have to admit, but it seems premature to me to whatever you're discussing, whatever the terminology is for today, passing or moving forward with this resolution in draft term, given the lack of clarity on what this resolution actually is. In today's climate full of divisiveness and dramatics and changes going on in some of the states, it just seems really important to be very clear on what this resolution means and what it does not mean. For me specifically, I think it being a non-binding resolution, I've heard, might make some believe that it's merely symbolic. And I argue that symbols are not merely anything, and that symbols are very, very important. And I don't think there'd be such a push to pass this resolution if the symbolism of it was not very important in people's minds. And second of all, again, I don't know too much about this, but if the federal government or state government made changes in terms of banning certain weapons or certain the stock things, the things that turn them into automatics and semi-automatics. I don't know what that would mean if we were a sanctuary county. I'm very curious to know what that means. I think everyone should know exactly what that means. Thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioner Meaden.
Well, just one comment, Gal just got up. It's already, in the state of Tennessee, the only regulation of arms that is allowed under our Constitution is the wearing of arms. There's no other regulation of types or that kind of thing that's allowed in Tennessee when it comes to firearms. There are some places where I think they breach that just a little, but that's what the Constitution says. That the legislation shall have the right to regulate the wearing of arms with the view to prevent crime, and the Tennessee Supreme Court has ruled that any law, rule, or regulation that does not have a clearly defined crime preventive purpose would violate the Tennessee Constitution. Also, I'd like to, being the maker of the motion, I'd like to state that I agree with the law director. There are some basically formatting errors where things, and I know sometimes if you go from one computer to another, it'll do this to you. It'll make paragraphs start different or something, but the wording of this is still clear. As to the, now, there are some places I would have changed the wording a little bit, but that's not important because it doesn't change the meaning. All this is really saying is that we feel that the Second Amendment is important, that we think it's a critical element of the United States form of government. The courts, who were just quoting both Tennessee law and the U.S. Supreme Court, were not making any statements that are controversial. Now, you could have controversy amongst people over what this U.S. Supreme Court is allowed to do, but their rulings are relatively clear when you read them, even though they're lengthy and they beat around the bush way too much. And so I would say that my motion is to approve this resolution subject to those minor editing changes recommended by the law director, because they really don't, because the things he's talking about, and I don't know if you look at this carefully, but the way that the paragraphs go, they don't come all the way back to the left in a couple of sections in the whereas sections. It's just a formatting thing. And so 30 seconds on a computer with this in the right format, it could be fixed. And I trust the law director to accurately make those minor editing things. And we do that all the time from this committee and from the full commission.
Commissioner McCamey, you agree to that second? We got a motion to approve resolution number 20. Jerry, you want to speak again?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
If the chairman will allow.
Sure.
And one of the speakers said that there were states making rules that unlawful by the Constitution. Well, that's what the Supreme Court is for. If a state does make laws that, in contrary to the U.S. Constitution, the Supreme Court can take that law up, and they can correct those errors that are made by state government, just as they make those corrections when we make mistakes, and our judges. But since the amendment is to have the law director, or the motion is to have the law director look at it, I would also like the law director to look at the proposed resolution that I authored over the weekend. And the mayor correctly pointed out that I was in error on one of those sentences. I'd like to defer this motion, put it off until next month. So I'd like to make that motion that we defer it to the next month's meeting and have the law director to bring back both resolutions in a correct form for us to consider.
We got a motion to defer. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we're not going to debate the deferral. We'll vote on it. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No. Okay, motion fails. We'll go back to resolution number 20-02-801 as amended. Commissioner Gaines?
One more comment. Yes. Normally, as far as my 4 years, we don't pass resolutions with ambiguity. And this has a substantial word that's ambiguous, and that's sanctuary. It means something different to everybody. I'd like to see that cleaned up. It probably won't be, but this word gives me pause. And that's really the only issue I have with this. And I wish we could clean it up. It probably won't be, but I wish every word was understood by everybody in this. And that's the way I like to see resolutions passed. This has this flaw in it. And just making a comment, I support the idea, but that word gives me a problem.
Commissioner Meade.
Yeah, as the maker of the motion, I reserve the right for the last to speak. I kind of agree about the sanctuary thing, but here's some background that's important. That word is being used by counties all over the state to show that it's kind of the same issue. It's become a code word that's being used in other states and all the way across this state. And so, whereas that word can have multiple meanings, in this case, it's kind of a rallying cry for a specific issue, and that is concern that the Second Amendment is under attack, and we don't want it to spread to Tennessee. It's not saying we will do anything we are not already bound by our oath of office to support. We certainly are never going to support a wanton violation of the Second Amendment, but I can tell you by studying legislation in this state that we have legislation introduced to our legislature every year that violates the Second Amendment. Now, luckily, so far it hasn't passed. Some of them have been close votes. And so that's all this really is. This is just a statement that we're on board and we're not going to allow violations of the Second Amendment or Section 26 of Article 1 of the Tennessee Constitution. Thank you.
Anyone else? You know, I'm a firm believer in committee. That's where you have discussion. And when we get to full commission, that's when we vote things up or down. So if anybody's got anything to say, I think Commissioner Wandale would appreciate getting it. Chairman Wandale would appreciate getting it all out in the open now. Commissioner James.
Just one point. Regardless of what we do, it's got to go to the entire county commission. If we don't pass something tonight, then we'll have to go through this all again here and then go to the county commission. So why don't we pass something tonight?
Anybody else? Okay, let's vote on it. Does everybody understand we're voting on resolution number 20-02-801 as amended? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All opposed?
I oppose.
Motion passes.
Chairman, before the mayor gets into another subject, I'd like to, the resolution that Commissioner Creasy handed out, I'd like to forward that to the law director and the mayor and ask them to come back with that resolution at our next meeting.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Commissioners, for the support. The next item is, I distributed a purchase agreement that was drafted by the law director for the capital acquisition of 96 Mariner Point Drive. And I'll wait till some folks clear out here. Before I get into it, I did want to address a couple of questions that Commissioner Yeager asked. One was about, I think it was only one question he asked and then one comment by Mr. Meredith. On the traffic, one of the citizens, a citizen did reach out or did appear before commission and mention the traffic concerns. And so I did go meet with the city manager and ask about that and have a conversation. He said that the city is more than willing to work with the county and approach TDOT again, whether that's for light or other safety improvements. So apparently, just as Mr. Meredith had said, I think that ask was many, many years ago, and things may have changed since then, and traffic may have changed since then. So I did reach out on that. And then Commissioner Yeager asked about the $1 million number that was on the property assessor's website. I would assume that that number is on there for a cost to build. And if you look at the appraisal that we had done, you saw depreciation in there. And so I think what probably happened is it's a tax exempt property, so they probably reported the cost to build, but then the property assessor does not go back and do reappraisals as they do other properties throughout the county. They can, but that's probably why you're still seeing that $1 million number. And just for a little context on that, so when back in 2017, in February and March of 2017, I was working with Knox County on their senior programs. And so just for some comparison, as an example, their Carnes Senior Center, and this was from Mayor Burchett's office, his team had emailed, a fact sheet over and then all the, concept designs and all of that. They went out to bid for an 8,000 square foot facility. They got bids anywhere from $155 a square foot to $225 or $220 per square foot. That was in his bid response. So that's anywhere for 8,000 square foot from 1.2 million, 2.4 million to 1.76 million. And so if we look at our facility, we're looking at over 8,000. 8,942 square feet. So if we did a cost to build, if we were looking at building such a facility, you can see that that would be, even if we chose the low end, we're looking at well over $1 million to build such a facility. So I just kind of wanted to give some context to that number and where how that probably appeared on the property assessor's website. I did put in your packet, and I don't want to drag anything out, so just you tell me what you want me to go over. But I did put in there a checklist, due diligence that has been done on the facility. And I'll start with the motion I'm requesting so that you kind of know where I'm headed. The Budget Committee did approve part of the funding, which would be $110,000 from the Capital Improvement Fund and $110,000 from the unassigned fund balance. And then today, Finance Committee did approve pursuing a 10-year note for the other portion. So the funding is going through the funding committees and has been forwarded with recommendations for approval through the funding side. The senior program has, what I presented to Budget Committee was a commitment for $25,000 towards that purchase to leave them room to be able to move the kitchen wall. I haven't had a contractor go in, I don't have any estimates, but I'm certain the seniors would be willing to donate any overage of that towards this purchase. On this side, what I would be asking from the operations meeting, and I typed this out in case you were willing to approve it so that Annette didn't she didn't have to keep up with me. I'm requesting a motion to approve a no earnest money down commercial real estate contract that was presented to you with a closing date on or before March 24th, 2020, with a scheduled closing of 2 p.m. on March 24th. And then I have parentheses with a note, because the contract reads, the date could be extended if agreed upon in writing by both the buyer and the seller. And authorization for the mayor to act upon the contract terms that allow for survey and title approval, as well as negotiating identified repairs with the seller. And those were the repairs that I noted in the other committees, that there was a list of issues. And an execution date of the contract to be set for February 24th, 2020. And that's because sometimes it takes a little time for the clerk to get the paperwork. And if I'm asking for 30-day, I would prefer to set the execution date on the 24th, and then we would do a closing, or the final 30 days, the clock would run out on March 24th. So that's the motion I'm requesting. And I did put in your packet, if you want to walk through all of this for you or for the public, we did have an appraisal by a certified MAI appraiser. That's the highest level appraisal. You all did receive that. The appraiser is also a TDOT certified appraiser, meaning he meets the bar for to do state appraisals. While it was restricted to internal use, commissioners have received this 97-page document confirming that the sale price is well below the appraised value. And then in your packet is a confirmation from the church. There were some questions about that number that appeared on the deed. The church has that email in there that that was not a purchase price. A purchase price for the facility was not established. That amount was, they took on the debt of New Life Fellowship at the time. And so since merging with the church, they took on their loan. That is reflected in the email that you have from the church. Since then, they put in $212,830.75 in building improvements into that facility. And then lastly, that initial acquisition and merger with New Life did not include an additional 3 acres that they obtained. Then we did have an ADA inspection, and Louise McCowan, Commissioner Denenberg, Commissioner Creasy, Commissioner McCamey, some others were there, Roger Lloyd. There were some outstanding needs that were identified. One of those is a van accessible parking lot, which is required per ADA. They did look at it. There is room to make that happen. Possible conversion, because it is a senior center, of additional parking spots that are accessible parking and designated as accessible. And then signage on the doors would need large raised print and braille. And then Louise did note that some of the doors seemed a little heavy, and we might need to adjust those, the tension. So those were the issues identified per ADA. And I included the inspection report from that inspection on January 14th, 2020. Then we did have an NACHI certified inspector conduct an inspection. There were actually 2 inspectors on site. They were there over half the day and then went back to do some follow-up. 122 items were inspected, including the grounds, roof, exterior, foundation, attic, roof structure, electrical system, exit signs, outlets, water heater, heating, ventilation, air, kitchen, bathroom, sinks, interior doors, windows, ceilings, fixtures, floors, handrails. 18 deficiencies were identified, 7 of those immediate. And I've noted in your paperwork what those immediate concerns are. If you want me to go through those, I will. I did have Roger Lloyd, our Director of Buildings and Ground, review this entire report. He said of the deficiencies identified, he said most everything on there could be handled in less than half a day's work. There's nothing critical on here that would cause an issue. However, if you authorize me, I would like to approach the seller about having, just like any home inspection, you're going to find some things, and you work with the seller on getting those fixed before you move in. So I would like the, authorization to be able to negotiate that with them. That's really it. If there are other questions or any other information that you need, of course, I'm 100% happy to provide it. I added to the agenda tonight, I met with Representative Reagan again on Friday about funding, and he had provided a letter of commitment, so it wasn't hearsay that they were willing to support obtaining funding for us, but that you had something in writing from him on behalf of him and the Lieutenant Governor. And I know there were still some questions, so I did meet with him. He said that, again, he and Lieutenant Governor McNally are already working on how to accomplish the funding. Of course, it's just like you all as county commissioners, one of you can't speak for the rest of county commission, so they can't make a promise. But Randy McNally is the lieutenant governor, and he's been on finance and shepherding the state for a very long time. So I feel confident that he is able to assist us. Representative Reagan let me know a timeline. He said that he spoke with the lieutenant governor and that all the goals are to be out to adjourn session mid-April. And this is an election year for a lot of state representatives, so that's the target date. So we should know something. The Finance Committee did approve the $250,000, but what we can do on that is wait until session is over before we actually pull the trigger on that, because we may not need it. If the legislature does come through with that $250, or we could ask for more and see what we can get, then we don't have to, we could go ahead and go through the motions of borrowing, and if they deliver on the funding, then we don't have to borrow. Or if the grant process might take a little bit longer, then we could always, I would commit to using the receipt of those funds to pay off any debt instrument, so.
Commissioner McCamey.
Make a motion to approve, just as the mayor outlined it, the motion, and to add, working with the seller to correct the 14 deficiencies.
Second.
Motion second, discussion on the motion. Commissioner Yeager.
Thank you. I would love to vote yes on this tonight. I would love to also have $250,000 in hand. That's just too much money for me to say, I hope we get with a yes vote tonight. When I know it's coming, I'll probably be a yes vote, but I am not tonight. I wish I were.
And I totally respect that opinion, and that's why I did, I don't like to bank on just promises and wishes and hopes. So that's why the $250,000 funding proposal or borrowing proposal does have a funding stream. So instead of paying $18,000 a year in lease to, lease a facility that doesn't meet our needs, that $18,000 in the senior budget would be zeroed out, and that number would go to pay, to actually own instead of lease. And then there is another pot of money. By doing the ESG improvements, we're able to terminate a maintenance agreement that we have in place, and that is an escalating over the next 9 years. It goes from 10 up to almost 13,000, and that pays the balance. So that is, again, I don't want to bank on hoping they deliver. So there is a funding plan to pay for that if something went wrong. And that's the proposal I'm putting before you, and what I put before Finance today, and what I put before when I address budget. That is my plan. But I'm just telling you that there's an effort in the legislature.
I do understand
Right.
that other process of, was it Johnson Controls, I believe it was?
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
I wish I were there. I just wish I were, and I'm almost. Just not tonight.
Hopefully I can convince you.
Commissioner Jameson.
I want to make it brief. I'm for purchasing this property. There's two things I want to ask. When you buy something, it's yours.
Yes.
Just like we bought that other building. There were some mistakes made, and we won't go into that. If we buy this building, are you confident that 6 months from now, we won't have to spend $50,000 on the heating or air conditioning unit?
I mean, I can't ever make a promise on equipment. I mean, we don't know what will happen, but we feel, yes, we feel good. We had I'll tell you, the gentleman who came to do the inspection, he said, Mayor, I'm going to be here all day. He knows what happened on our other purchase. He said, I want to make sure we get this right for the Anderson County Senior Program and for Anderson County.
So he knows how old that equipment is.
Yes, and we have, now, during this 30 days, I'll probably pursue, they have an agreement, actually, all of their heat and air is serviced monthly, and it is with, I think it's Del Air, or it's one of the, I don't have that with me in all my stacks of stuff, but I do have that. All of that is serviced on a monthly basis, and the inspector did note that in his report as well, in addition to the folks at Faith Promise telling me that and showing me the ID tags on the equipment.
Okay, one last bit of information. I've got a lot more time and I've got money. And so I went to the property assessor and did a little research. I went to the appraiser of property, and I found out that 3.5 acres that they bought after they bought the original property to build the building is right behind the church, or the church building that we're trying to buy. That 3.5 acres, 80% of it is not suitable for use right now because all the drainage off of Mariner Point, those villas, patio homes, all that water drains down there. So in other words, it's property, but it's not all of it usable property. Now, if you wanted to bring in 5,000 truckloads of topsoil or something, you could probably make a pool table out of it. But I think sometimes we need to really look at all of these situations, because I don't want to come up 6 months from now, a year from now, and say, well, we need 50,000 for this or 200,000 for this.
Right.
But I am for buying that building as long as we are confident that it's a good one.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Commissioner Mead.
I'm not going to get into a big discussion about the 205 building. But I will say this. The mistakes we made with the 205 building led us to really find out what you really should do before you buy a building. Okay? And I think it was a wonderful lesson for people all across county government, people in the senior center organizations and board. I think this time we came back with a whole different attitude and a whole different ability to know what a deal is and what a deal is not. After studying this, this has been an ongoing thing, but particularly the whole package that the mayor put together for this meeting, to me makes it so clear that this is a deal. We're getting this at about half, the appraised price, half market price, whatever. And as far as this $1.5 million tax assessment thing, when you have an organization that doesn't pay taxes, they don't spend a lot of time arguing about their assessment. And so that number is just kind of a phantom number anyhow when it's a property that's not being taxed. Of course, it won't be taxed either after the county starts to run it, okay? But we're not losing taxes because we weren't getting them anyhow. If we bought another piece of private property around the county, it would go from being tax-paying to non-tax-paying. We're not losing that either. There's multiple ways this can be paid for, even if the help doesn't come about from the state. Okay, just the money, and the mayor's just gone through this, but just the money they've been paying for rent in the savings on some of these other contracts for not paying maintenance. The money's already there. And so my personal feeling is that to not go ahead with this deal would be a bigger mistake than 205. Thank you.
Commissioner Anderson.
Go ahead.
Sheree, real quick, thank you for the numbers you gave us. What time period did that cover, the 3,768?
The numbers
clients,
that I
sir?
pulled are means they're active, which means there was a service done within the last year.
Within the last year, okay. Okay, those are good numbers. Looking it over, you can kind of see who you serve the most, and it's definitely mostly Clinton, Oak Ridge, that kind of that municipal area. So it's kind of what I knew already, and why I was kind of a big fan of partnering with the city of Clinton on the armory. But I know that's off the table. It also, the numbers like kind of show why I've had so much opposition in my district to moving further away towards Mariner Point. There's less participation from that end of the county. But now I do know that you got to put it somewhere, and it needs to go. They need to get out of their current location, and I know it can't be close to everyone. I understand that, but I think that, combined with the fact that people seem to really want, right or wrong, they have married the 205 main issue, and I think people would feel better about us committing, having resolved 205 main before we commit to buy something. And like Commissioner Yeager said, I want to be able to support it, but it just seems like there are too many loose ends, and it's a tough sell to people that live close to Union County to buy a second building, and then that puts us at having spent $1.1 million, and then not necessarily knowing how to continue funding the repairs and things that will eventually come up that Commissioner Jameson mentioned. So I've struggled with it a lot, and it's not just an arbitrary no. I am really thinking about it a lot and getting a lot of feedback from all sides. So, thank you.
Commissioner Wendell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was looking for my pen. I hit it on myself. To say that you can't marry this together, it's not about marrying things together. It's about money. When you spend $625,000 on a building for the purchase of a senior center, whether you agree or disagree, it's $625,000 of taxpayers' money that has been spent. Now, we can sit here and argue you can't tie it to the next purchase, but in reality, we spent $625, even more probably. I'm just using a round number. So for me, I'm $625 in. I invested $625,000 with my vote. Is that saying I'm not supportive of this location? Absolutely not. There's been some commissioners make comments that we're much smarter on how to make those purchases now. I agree with them. So, what I'd like to know, Mr. Chairman, there's been a motion made. Is the motion, as it reads on this agenda, approval to enter into a purchase agreement for the capital acquisition of 96 Mariner Point Drive with closing date 30 days from approval? Is that the motion on the floor?
That is correct.
Okay, so it doesn't talk about how much we're going to buy it for, that motion.
It's in the contract agreement. It's $500,000. It's on that.
I've got that, the contract, commercial real estate purchase contract you're referring to?
It's on page 2, sir.
So I guess I'm just trying to get some clarity. If I'm going to vote yes for this motion, I need it to have a number in it, up to a number. I don't want to vote on a motion that isn't clear on how much we're going to spend for the building. And I understand it's in this agreement, but that's not what we're necessarily voting on right now. What we're voting on is approval to enter into a purchase agreement for the capital acquisition of 96 Point Drive, Mariner Point Drive, with a closing date of 30 days from approval. That's the motion we're going to be taking action on.
And we can put that in there, 500,000. What I gave to Annette, I told her, I mean, I wrote on her copy attachment, because the language of my motion said I'm requesting a motion to approve a no earnest money down commercial real estate contract presented to you. And I wrote, you know, I penciled on hers, I would give her this attachment afterwards. But we can put that price in the motion. I mean, that's fine. I just was trying to get some work done ahead of time.
And I'll let the maker of the motion address it when he's ready, in the second, or maybe at the end, it's up to $500,000 on that motion or something, but they can word it better than me. So, my next question. You mentioned that the Budget Committee and the Finance Committee has passed funding mechanisms to make this acquisition.
Yes.
You already said it's gonna potentially be up to 500,000, is that?
The budget proposals I presented were based on the $500,000 number.
Okay.
So what was in the budget packet was donations, and then 2 appropriations from 2 different funds, and that totaled $250, and then the Finance Committee, $250,000 capital outlay note for 10 years.
Okay, so you mentioned earlier 110,000 from the capital fund,
Yes,
and then 110 from the unassigned fund.
yes.
That's 120, then two.
115 from the capital
Oh,
improvement fund.
I apologize, I wrote that down wrong. So 115 from the capital outlay fund, and then 110 from the unassigned designated fund, brings us to 225, then the 25,000 from the
Senior.
donations from the Anderson County Senior Services 5013C?
No. No, from the city. It's already in the counties.
Okay, so,
It'll come from the county budget.
okay, I'm just asking, I'm not trying to challenge, I'm just, my interpretation was the funds that were put into the county funds were donations from the 5013C. Are you telling me they're not?
They're,
No.
From the seniors.
They're from
Okay,
individuals.
okay, very good. All right, I appreciate the clarification for me, because I'm just trying to get a hold of it. So what was the funds donated from the has there been any money from the 5013C given to the county to put into a line item? I thought Robbie told me last meeting that there was. So maybe he misinterpreted. That was never 5013C money that was donated to the county or put into this line item. It was just funds that were donated to the senior center, and then they gave them to the county. Is that my
I
understanding?
think there are some, and I can get that by Monday night's meeting. There are some that have already been donated to Anderson County government and placed into a restricted code. And
That's what I
I
thought.
want to say, I think that's maybe $7,000 or something, but when Cherie's counting her 43, I think some individuals have, you know, they're not going to write the check unless they believe a building's going to be purchased. You know, they want to know that that's where their money is going. I know I've given a small amount myself and intend to give more myself if a purchase goes through. I'm one of her pledges. I know some other people in here are, you know, on the pledge list. And
I'm in for the plaque for 100.
Oh.
Haven't
Thank
paid
you.
yet, but I'm in.
So,
So the 25 that you mentioned in your description of the funds that are already in place, so that 25 is just donations that have been allocated to the Anderson County line item under the
I asked Robbie to open up a building fund.
building fund, okay. Thank you, sure. All right, so now that gets us to the 250, and then the other 250, you mentioned we're gonna go a 10-year finance, what kind of tool are we looking at using for the 10-year finance?
I put it in the finance and the budget agenda. I thought I might have put it, maybe I didn't put it in your operations one.
We're going to borrow it in some capacity.
Yes.
It was a loan, I believe.
Yes.
Instead of a note.
Yes,
It was a
yes.
loan.
Yeah.
2% was the estimate on that rate.
So we looked at, I also looked at the Tennessee Loan Fund, and the interest rate was higher on that. I think I misspoke at finance, I said 4, but I was thinking of the interest payment being of 4,000 something. So the interest was like 3 1/4 or 3 1/2 or something like that. So it was considerably higher than what Mr. Gibson had submitted. So to answer your question, Commissioner Wandell, what we were looking at on a 10-year was a 2% coupon. And so over the life of 10 years, what we're looking at is $28,702.78 in interest. And again, I mean, my hope would be that we are able to get assistance from the state and we pay 0 interest or nominal interest. But I don't want to bank on that. That's why I've put in place the borrowing plan.
I see the chairman handed me, I appreciate it, the capital outlay note with Cumberland. Is there one for, you mentioned the Tennessee Municipal Loan?
Yes, I don't know that I brought that up
It's okay,
here.
it's okay. Okay, so that answers those questions. That would be a loan going out. So to understand correctly, if we approve purchasing this building, and again, tonight, it looks like we're just giving you the right to go make that offer, really, and then you're going to come back to us and tell us what the actual offer is. Is that my understanding?
No, I'm asking for a purchase contract. So I've gone through the 2 committees for the funding, and then I'm asking to enter into a 30-day, and then we have outs, and that's what I'm asking you to authorize me to negotiate with them on any repairs, if they're materialize some kind of title issue, which I don't expect to. I don't think Jay pulled the 2 parcels. I don't know that you've seen any issue on there, have you, that would indicate but, and I did bring the Tennessee Loan Fund. Over the life of the 10 years, the interest is $52,428 as compared to the $28,000.
Okay. All right, thank you. So, and if you don't mind, Chairman, just a couple more things. For me to vote tonight to give you the right to go buy that building, I got to have some more questions answered.
Okay.
I sent those questions to you on Saturday. I know it's the weekend, and I know there's other things going on. I shared them with Ron this morning. He may not have got them, but I had to. So I'm not going to be able to vote for it until I get my questions answered.
Okay.
And this building, when we buy it, it's going to be owned by Anderson County.
Yes.
It'll be maintained by Anderson County. If there's a window broken, Anderson County will pay for it. If there's carpet that needs to be replaced, Anderson County will pay for it. Is that my understanding?
Well, that's up to you.
Well, I mean, I think if we buy it, I think it's ours.
Right.
I mean, I understand that there could be hypothetical that somebody can go fix something, the seniors, and they do everything they can on a shoestring budget. I'm not here to criticize them. I'm just saying, reality is, just like 205 Main, we own that building. It's not the senior's responsibility to fix the mold or whatever, right? So my interpretation, and I want to be very clear before I make a vote, when we buy this building, is it the county's building, and do you expect us to maintain it? So let me just run off these questions real quick. I know you're not going to be able to answer them all, but Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I'd
Well,
like
if
to
you
just.
don't care, let me answer the
Go ahead,
maintenance
go ahead.
one, though.
Yes, ma'am.
And why I say that is up to you is because the previous agreement with the senior program, and this is the way they operate now, Buildings and Grounds does not provide them cleaning, they do not provide them toilet paper or paper towels or garbage bags, so they are on their own. And when we purchased 205, the agreement was the county would be responsible for major, so roof, HVAC, and they would be responsible for minor. So they did do many of their own repairs actually there that were minor repairs. You can verify this with Robbie. The senior program has been amazing about when there is a need, they have people that donate to meet the need, whether that's time, services, equipment, repairs, or monetary. They know they don't want to come up here and ask you for money, so they've really done a fantastic job at that. So that, when I say it is up to you, it really is up to you.
So.
But I would assume that major, when it comes time to do a roof, or it comes time, if there's a major HVAC issue, I would assume the county would be responsible for that.
Okay. And I'm not challenging
Yeah.
that. I mean, I'm not asking it's the senior's responsibility. I want to be clear on the front end this time versus getting
Sure.
into it and then, well, we didn't say that, well, we said this, and no, you said that, and then here we all are again arguing over things. And I don't want to argue. I just want to get a building that works for the seniors. I want to finance it. Looks like you've done all the financing properly. And, so I do have some other questions that, and again, Mayor, I emailed them, so don't worry about writing nothing down. I want to get the answers. Tonight, we're just going to vote, and it'll go to the full commission for approval, so it's not like I got to vote no because I'm not getting answers. So I'll probably vote yes, but I want to get these answers.
Sure.
So here's my questions real quick. Total payroll costs, this is all lumped together.
Okay.
Total current payroll costs, and this isn't to say the current senior director's making too much or too little or to do analogies. It's just to know what it actually is. I like to know the senior line item budget that you maintain for the county. And in that will be the lease payments, utility bills, P-card cost, expenditures, total revenue, donations.
Right.
I'd like to see all of that stuff.
And I did not have time today.
That's
It was a
okay.
heck of a day, but I did get with Robbie.
Okay.
He said he's got everything on the financial side. He and I are going to go over what he has and where I need to fill in the gaps tomorrow.
Yes, because
So
I know
we did get
it's all
together
over the
on that.
board. It's all over the board, and I know you don't have all the
Right.
answers, and I appreciate that. And I didn't expect to have the answers today. I didn't get them to you in time. I got them when it hit my brain on Saturday. So the next thing was total projected cost to purchase included interest. You've already kind of covered that. Transition plan from current location to potential new location, cost and projected timelines. I'd like to have a timeline on what that looks like. We can all go out here and buy a building, but if we don't have a plan on how we're going to make that transition, we'll have problems again, more cost again.
Right.
So I just think
Okay.
it's pertinent that we all put that together. Exit of current lease cost. Is there a cost associated with that? I don't know. Upgrades and repairs of current location costs. How will that be funded? So what you kind of mentioned, I'm not opposed to this body, and every commissioner votes their own conscience. I'm not opposed if you come up to me and say, Tracy, we're going to need $75,000 to put in a wall for the kitchen, and as long as I know on the front end what you're asking for, instead of us buy the building and say, well, here you go, guys, here's
Right.
our new bill for all.
I don't want to do that.
I know you don't, and that's what you've said, and I appreciate
Yeah.
it. So, I'm almost done, Mr. Chairman. Who will manage the new facility? Roger? If so, will his budget be increased to help manage it and maintain it? I'd like to see Roger involved in this conversation instead of being told, you need to go fix that, and then he's got another building to take care of. Insurance and liability costs, just want to make sure if something happens and somebody gets hurt, I'm sure our insurance will cover it, but I just want to make sure of that. Is there a plan/drawings on how the seniors plan to utilize the spaces and programs to be offered? I'd like to know what that looks like. I know she has programs already, but I'd like to have it all laid out. And, I'd like to say, she says, well, in this space, we're going to have drawings, or, in this space is going to be education or whatever. I mean,
Okay.
What would the organizational chart look like for the senior program? Who will be in charge of programs, building and maintenance operations, and emergency contacts? Should something happen at night and the roof blow off? I'd like to see an organizational chart, and if so, how does the Anderson County Senior Services tie into that or not? Totally separate, that's fine. I'd like to have an organizational chart over there too,
Okay.
to understand what, and Ron kind of covered that tonight about what their focus is. So that's kind of all I asked for. I did say in the email, Robbie, I'm interested in your ideas and thoughts on how to include 205 Main sale towards the potential new sale or purchase of 96 Mariner property. That's not to say I'm not voting yes unless you sell it. And, you know, yes, I've said that in the
Right.
past, but I'm just saying, is there a process to where when we do sell 205 Main, can we apply it to the purchase to maybe not even have to borrow the $250,000, which would save us $28,000?
Right.
And, you know, so those are the kinds of things I'm interested in.
Okay.
I'm sorry I rambled. I
No, you
appreciate
did not
your
ramble.
patience.
Those are good questions,
I'm
and the
gonna
public
sup-
deserves answers, and you deserve answers.
Well, no, I'm going to vote yes on this, and I hope that our full commission will do the same as long as we have all of these punch items. And if, you know, if I do not, and this is just me talking, Mr. Chairman, I'm not speaking for all the commission, but if I don't have an understanding of how that transition happens from the 205 Main to the new location and all the pieces of the finance and the operations and the maintenance, I'm not going to support it at full commission. But at full commission, I can't say these things, so I appreciate the time. I just got to run the meeting and get darts thrown at me. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you, Mayor.
Thank you.
And thank you, Ron, for what you've done, and Sheree for all you're doing.
Great discussion. I mean, that's what the committees are about.
And I appreciate Mr. McCamey. I know he's put a lot into it, and I ran into him and Mr. Jamerson at a ball game and got a little more education, and it was very helpful, and no decisions were made, okay? So, so thank you.
I just have a very quick question.
That way everybody can see you at home.
You can take the chair and sit down. Listening to all of the things that Commissioner Wandell was asking, I mean, it sounds like what we really need is some type of agreement from the seniors to the commission and/or the citizens of Anderson County to lay out all of these things. I mean, why would we go into an agreement to purchase a building and not have these things all identified and directed as to whose responsibility? And basically, that's it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner McCamey, did you want to amend?
I think it'd be proper to add to the motion to purchase not to exceed 500,000, and that was a suggestion from Commissioner Wandell, and I agree with it. I'd make that a part of my motion if the seconder agrees. The seconder agrees, so it'd be to purchase, enter into the purchase agreement not to exceed 500,000.
And it's not to say the mayor may get lucky and get it cheaper. I mean, she's, right? I mean, that's a possibility, right, Mayor?
I'm going to try. No harm in trying.
Any other discussion? All in,
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I want to commend Robert McCamey and the mayor for their leadership and the hard work. They've been working on this a long time, and they're very well prepared.
thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Let's do a roll call. Commissioner Jameson. Commissioner Mead.
Aye.
Commissioner McCamey.
Aye.
Commissioner Creasy.
No.
Commissioner Wandell.
Aye.
Commissioner Yeager. Commissioner Anderson.
No.
Commissioner Isabel votes aye. Motion passes.
Thank you, commissioners, for the support. And I will, I know tomorrow, I will try to get those answers in by the agenda deadline. I know tomorrow I have a really full day, so if I do not get it in by noon, I'll try to get it done.
Mr. Chairman, I don't expect you to have it all done by tomorrow, by as long as we could have it, it'd be great to have it by Friday so the commissioners can get it and digest it. I think to Commissioner Denenberg's point, and obviously you run the senior program
Right.
in your capacity as mayor, and that's up to you on how that's ran, but I do believe it would make sense to have maybe a transitional plan, operational plan on what, because you brought up some good points. What if you decide that, yeah, we'll cover the roofs and the HVAC and plumbing or whatever, but other stuff is gonna be put on the seniors, or, I mean, that's
Sure.
your call. not-
Yes.
and-
Yeah.
And I'm interested in hearing what that looks like.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
And I do want Commission to know, I've mentioned this before, when, Roger and I worked very hard on 205, and when you all want a recommendation from me, my recommendation is it's going to cost too much to rehab that facility for their program. And so that was a business recommendation to you all, and this is just an opportunity that presented itself. I mean, we've been looking, knowing that we need to try to find, for instance, the one offer that you all authorized for $300,000 at the facility at the interstate. Of course, again, not everybody was happy with that location, but they did not accept that offer. I wish they would have. That would have been a little more facility than we needed, but we did talk to some of the other departments about perhaps sharing that facility. But I did want Commission to understand, Wayne, do we do it this way or do we do it this way? I'm trying to present the least expensive option to solve the problem for you and for the taxpayers, so.
Mr. Chairman, she mentioned 205, and I believe all of that. Could you just give a quick update on 205 Main so the folks at home understand it's up for sale again, and just, I know you've worked on it, the mayor's worked on it.
There's bids out, right, or the bid process, and it's supposed to be done on the April the 29th. We talked about that today in the purchasing committee. So I think they went out and took some more pictures today, or cleaned up to take more pictures, or.
We went out today with the sheriff's department and some of the inmates, and took a look at the building and where things needed to be cleaned up and put in more presentable conditions so pictures can be taken. And when someone does want to go through the property, it's going to present a lot better than it is right now, because right now it's rough.
In purchasing committee, I think Commissioner Anderson spoke with Catherine about it, about how many hits we've already had on it. I don't have those notes. I've got them, but not here. I think, or was it Commissioner? Yes, Commissioner Yeager. If you want to tell about how many hits and how they.
I did not write those down, sir.
I did. There was 100. There's 140 on one and 100 on the other.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, Mayor, could you, in your negotiations, consider asking the sellers if they would allow the remaining 250 to be contingent on the sale of 205 Main? I mean, I'm pretty confident we're gonna get 250 out of 205 Main. I mean, maybe that might be part of your negotiations with them, just to say, hey, look, it's gonna be open on the 29th of April. We'd like to use those funds instead of us going out and borrow more money. Just something to think about.
Sure, and I think the contract, I actually kind of was thinking along those lines, because I think the contract language does allow, where is it?
You got it in control. I don't mean to keep.
Well, there's a
you later.
section there, if you look at it, dadgummit, I don't know what I just did, I've got too
Oh,
much
the-
paper.
The purchase agreement?
Yeah,
The
it
part that says
has
it can be
a,
extended for additional time. Is that what you're looking for?
Oh, we're good. Let's move on.
Okay.
You don't have to worry about that.
okay.
153 and 100. That's
Oh,
how many
wow.
hits from two different
Excellent,
organizations.
excellent.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the.
Well, before
oh,
let's do that,
sure.
let's take a quick break.
Okay.
Mayor's still up.
Sorry. Okay, the next item is a resolution 2002-802, This is to allow turkey hunting on the county-owned property consisting of only the Blockhouse Valley former landfill site, and to adopt restrictions and procedures for permits related. Back in 2018, I brought a copy. I don't have a resolution. It wasn't in the agenda, but Commissioner Warfield made a motion to approve a youth and wounded warrior hunt. The Melton Hill Longbeards chapter did a great job. They managed that out there on site. I know I went out there. I think Jay went out there on site. And this would be for only 2 days. So it would be the Young Sportsman on March 28th. And then on April 25th, the Veterans Hunt only.
Motion to approve, Mayor.
Second.
Motion second, any discussion?
I
All in
did check
favor?
with the law director on the facility, and he checked with Arcadis, and they have no conflicts with those dates, and they also copied John Bird on
Good
the email
job.
so that he's aware of the date.
Good job.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
And then the next is a resolution, it's the resolution before you, asking for state assistance on, for the purchase of the senior center. And I left a blank in there. Again, I kind of touched on this when we were discussing the senior program. I did meet with John Reagan. He said it would be good to have something in writing, just an acknowledgement from full commission that, something that he can share with his fellow legislators, that we are requesting the funding, even
Mr.
though they're
Chairman.
already working on it.
Mr. Chairman, I support the mayor's resolution number 20-02-83, resolution seeking assistance from the state of Tennessee for the purpose of purchasing a facility to adequately house and operate the Anderson County Office on Aging and Senior Center.
Second.
You want to put a dollar amount in that?
500,000. Ask for that.
1.5 million, oh, sorry.
Ask
If
for
we're raising, I thought I'd go up a little bit too.
I would suggest the 500,000 that we,
Up to 500,000. I'm in agreement with that.
Okay.
I always ask for more than you hope to get, you know.
Because you generally do get less than you hope.
Right. Well, that's why I say you ask for, if we only ask for 250,000, they might come back with 150, you know, so we ask
So
for
we're filling in the
500,000.
blank at 500,000.
Suits me, if the mayor's okay.
That sounds good.
Any discussion? We got a motion and a second. Did you get second? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, before we vote on that, I'd like to point something out. If we borrow the money, the 250,000 that the Finance Committee authorized, the payment's not due on that until June of 2022 or 2021?
2021.
2021. So we could go ahead and borrow the money and then just pay it off without hardly any interest, either with the money we get if we sell 205 South Main or the 250, and we will know both of those before a payment comes due on that money.
Even if we use that money to pay off 205 Main Street, we still owe it.
Right.
We still owe it. We have a
Understood.
note.
Yeah,
Yep,
if we sell 205 South Main, we have to have another building
Right.
or pay off the entire note. So, but this way, we can, if we go ahead and borrow the money, then it can be paid for two different ways, either with the assistance from the state or from the sale of 205 South Main. So, again, we're marrying those two together, kind of.
I like it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
And then the last item on the agenda, I had discussed Resolution 20-01-796. This was the resolution that Commissioner Mead has worked a very long time on. I forget what you called, what the title of the resolution is, but
It's a lengthy
yes.
description.
So the discussion came up with one of our departments about would there be anything that would prohibit additional training? So this topic also came up at the legislative committee as well. So I did talk with Commissioner Mead before the meeting, and he said nothing would prohibit someone from having any kind of standards to put in the employee handbook. I did talk to Kim, and I asked her to go ahead and add that to the HR Advisory Committee. But I just wanted to, I went ahead and put this, Commissioner Mead had been traveling and has been helping his daughter, and so I put this on the agenda because I couldn't get in touch with him at that particular time, so I wanted to go ahead and get it out there, because we did have a department that wants to be able to ask that if their employees are going to conceal carry, that they make sure they have training. And this is because of concerns over a law now where you can go online and get a permit instead of actually having to provide documentation that you've been through a training course. So,
Motion, we have second.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes,
Commissioner Wando.
So have we passed Resolution 20-01-796?
no, you've got it.
So you're just going to forward it?
It passed in the legislative
Yes.
committee meeting with a full quorum Thursday.
Yeah. And I just want it to be on the HR committee, because if we pass it, I want, the
So you want
employee
the HR
handbook.
You want, so, I mean, this reads to put it into the policy book.
Well, I just put it on,
Jay, have you looked at this?
Yes, sir.
Oh, so you're okay with putting this resolution into the employee handbook?
Oh, no, that comes up. She's got it on the agenda. Kim added it to the agenda to the upcoming meeting on Wednesday.
Oh, okay,
It'll
so
be
you're gonna have that?
discussed there.
it'll be discussed there.
Okay, so all this is to say they're gonna have discussion.
Yes, this doesn't deal with his approval. His approval is going through the legislative committee. I'm just asking that we discuss it at,
The Human Resource Advisory.
yes,
I do believe the security committee wants to take it up too.
yeah.
Okay,
I
so
don't have the agenda item at that time, but this is on the agenda for HR.
you're just referring. I see it. I apologize. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Mead.
Yeah, and the mayor and I talked about this, and in regard to going to the HR committee for discussion, I have absolutely no problem with that. And I would love to get their comments, and if they have little issues or minor things or concerns, I want to get those resolved. But once passed by commission, the HR committee and operations committee will ensure the policy is implemented, including being in personnel policies and ensuring that those impacted understand the requirements, the legal requirements and responsibilities. Now, to be fair, this probably only impacts actually probably a dozen people in the whole county. Because we're only talking about people that are employees and contractors, okay, that have handgun carry permits. That also starts making it down to smaller numbers. And they actually want to carry at some time while they're in the performance of their duties with the county. Okay, the mayor and I talked about this, and the best we can think, it's probably a dozen people in the whole county that this would even apply to. Now, a couple of important things that I pointed out in these meetings, and I know some of you would have heard this before, but handgun carry permit holders in Tennessee have an incredibly good record of safety and in law-abiding nature. In fact, I went through 3 700-page reports looking that the state does to try to find where I could find issues. And to make a long story short, the main thing that permit holders does that gets them in trouble is pay their child support late. Okay? And the other interesting statistic that even surprised me, even though I feel pretty good about permit holders, in the 3 years of studies that I went through, not a single permit holder had been convicted of committing any kind of gun where they threatened, any kind of a crime where they actually threatened the use of a handgun or a firearm at all. Not even one. And we're talking about 653,000 permit holders. In the state of Tennessee, so that's a pretty big bunch. And you may not know that Anderson County, as of the end of the year, had 8,753 permit holders.
Will you be at the Human Resource Advisory Committee?
Absolutely.
Let's roll. Good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, I had a comment.
Sorry.
I think everyone knows how I feel about this. and I made these comments at legislative committee, it's our responsibility to provide a safe workplace for our employees. And it's our responsibility to ensure that it is safe. And in my opinion, I feel bringing more guns into this courthouse does not make it safer. I think the way to make this courthouse a safe workplace is to secure it and put our guards, take them off the 3rd floor and put them at the front door. And that's the way I feel about it. And I'll vote to approve you going to the HR committee, but I will not approve the vote for the resolution at county commission meeting. I feel very strong about this. I can picture myself with one of the elected officials disciplining an employee, and the employee sitting there with a firearm in his pocket. That don't mean, that is confusing to me. I can't support more firearms. I think the firearms in the courthouse should be those of our security personnel. Thank you.
Anyone else?
That's fine.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Next is intergovernmental committee TIF discussion, and Chairman Dittenberg is here, and we had some good discussion. I think that you want to come up and talk about that, what we did, and we talked about several things. One thing we talked about, and I want to commend Commissioner Wandale and Commissioner McCamey and Commissioner Denver Waddell and all the other ones that's come in support of a grocery store in Rocky Top. I think Commissioner Anderson, we've had a lot of comments, and the mayor, we've had a lot of comments and a lot of people wanting to help to do whatever we can, whether it's through a TIF or something of that nature. And I think the other thing that was discussed is about the intergovernmental committee becoming more involved with the IDB board, but I'll turn it over to Chairman.
Absolutely. Commissioner Isbell, we had some very, very, I feel, poignant conversation on the needs of the Rocky Top area. It's an area that obviously is in dire need of an influx of commerce and money to make some changes from what we're hearing. We discussed meeting with the managers up there, the law enforcement, and community leaders to discuss what it is that we as the commissioners can do to help. One of the other things that was discussed and had a unanimous vote of the committee was to become more involved with the TIF process. We're going to start, at least one of us, being present for the meetings of the Industrial Development Board. And what we would like to see is that the Intergovernmental Committee be kind of a clearinghouse when it comes to the TIFs, where we're kept informed, where we know what's going on, where if it's a situation that we feel that the, hold on.
That's yours too. Go ahead. So y'all have that, and I'll explain that in a minute.
Thank you. Rather than them just bringing a TIF to county commission and saying, here it is, vote it up, vote it down, that we will be far more informed and knowledgeable as to what is going on, be part of the negotiating process. So these are the things that we discussed. These are the things that the Intergovernmental Committee discussed and passed on unanimously. So we're asking that Operations Committee discuss what needs to be talked about. If you have any questions, I'll do the best I can to answer them.
Commissioner Yeager.
First time I've seen this, I'm kind of glancing.
Well, let me explain what this is. Commissioner Meredith gave me that
Okay.
at, I think
First
it's the
time I've
Finance
seen it,
Committee
too.
meeting.
Okay.
And it's something that the IDB board has already put in, and it's the changes. If you'll look down in section 4.3, it talks about $3 million, the project will be located within the city of Clinton, Tennessee, or $500,000 if the project is to be located within the city's Rocky Top, North Harbor Springs. So that's the big change right there. You know, before, you know, it had to be a $3 million investment, and you're not going, I don't think you're going to really get that in Rocky Top or Oliver Springs. So the IDB board has already presented this.
I just wondered if these numbers were based on something, so I appreciate that. All right, thanks.
Any other questions?
Thank you for the explanation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the focus of discussion is just really to try to, as you said, and to get something going in the Rocky Top area. if possible.
Absolutely.
And, you know, there's no grocery store has been discussed. Would we need to adopt this now, or could we, or?
We could adopt that now, we sure could.
I know everybody hasn't had a chance probably to see it.
Well, we only had 3 copies.
But basically, it's saying going from a $3 million minimum, you want to see this, Jerry, or I'll pass it back. $3 million minimum is what it would take to get be eligible for a TIF, kicking it down to 500,000 in these areas.
Yeah, these areas which would be located in the cities Rocky Top, Norris, and Oliver Springs.
And the Industrial Development Board's already approved that?
That's from the Industrial Development Board. Manitowoc, I think, is the one that came up with that.
Mayor, do you have any reservations about this, or Jay? I know it's short notice.
I'm excited about it myself. It's needed, and we know that threshold of $3 billion is just too much for some areas in our county. We just need to define the boundaries of what this is going to apply.
I guess my only question on this would just be your format, because I don't recall your formatting on what we have to approve. I mean, isn't it, ours is a resolution.
Yes, ma'am, you're correct.
And identifying, and,
And that, remember, that would be a recommendation to the
Right.
IDB to change their formula matrix.
Well,
well,
this actually
they've
is-
already done it, but
this
I
is-
thought when they do something, then it comes over to us, and then we have a resolution that marries up to their,
Okay, they've already completed it.
they completed theirs.
We're just adopting it, is what it would be, a
Okay.
resolution to adopt.
Did you have some concerns, though, Mayor?
Well,
over
I
that?
just, as long as it matches the format that it's supposed to be.
I'm a,
Yeah.
It's subject to your approval, I'll go ahead and put it in the proper format and have it ready.
Go ahead, Jerry, you got a question. I'm sorry, Mr.
I
Chairman.
just wanted to say, the mayor's comments was right on target.
Yes.
And that's the same question I had. That's why I asked the chairman, had they voted on this yet? And you said they had.
Yes, and, I mean, just my own, I mean, this was actually discussed, I was at one of the IDB meetings where we discussed that, and Mark Mamatoff actually said, you know, there's no reason Rocky Top, and I think that will have to be changed at their levels as well. So at the city level,
I
they'll
think they're
have
actually
to-
going to meet tomorrow, if
Okay.
I understood correctly.
Yes.
Yeah, it's tomorrow
Yes.
afternoon at 4 o'clock.
But I do hope, I mean, some of the issues I raised on TIFs were, let's look at some of the agreements, and this doesn't really address some of the concerns. I'm all for this,
Right.
but it doesn't address some of the concerns.
things.
Are we awarding them in areas where we don't need to be awarding them? There's still some other things. I like the idea of the intergovernmental. That's one of the things Davidson County did. They identified, they were getting proposals that were coming in from everywhere. And so they streamlined, where does the application start? And if you wanted to start it, it needs to start at the intergovernmental, you know, however you want to lay that out. But I do think there's lots of other things, and I'm excited to hear that you're going to look at some of that, so.
And I think that's what the discussion was.
Absolutely.
At the intergovernmental committee becomes more of a part of the IDB board when they are, they're
gives us a chance to talk about
Yes.
it, like, yes, look at it and review it, ask more depth questions than we
Exactly.
get the chance to do around here.
And take to the IDB board what our thoughts are and what we're really looking for.
Yes.
So
Mr.
they have
Chairman,
a little more direction as well.
I'm going to make a motion, we approve as presented, once adopted properly within our county. Is that, saying that right, Jay?
Yeah, or just make a recommendation to forward it on the county commission for approval.
Recommendation to forward it on
I'll go ahead
to
and
full
put it in
commission
proper-
upon
proper
approval
format.
of law director.
I second.
Is there any way I can get a copy of this, or can I have this? Are we okay with it, just the municipal boundaries of what they've got in here, Rocky Top North and Oliver Springs? I guess that's the first step, but I always thought the north end of the county a little bit broader than just the municipalities, but if they've already passed this, let's go ahead and go with it. And then
We can always
But that-
amend, couldn't we?
we can always amend in the
Yeah.
future, but
Yeah.
we've got some other areas inside the county that need to be looked at.
They're gonna vote on that tomorrow. This is what Manitowoc proposed, so,
Will you let me know if it fails? Otherwise,
I'm going to the meeting.
I'm just gonna go full speed ahead and put this in the resolution format.
Can I amend the motion? I'd like to have the IDB board at the commission meeting when we discuss this and vote on it, so that we can ask them questions on what these are. Can I amend it to do that?
sure.
Sure. I accept that.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Who seconded the motion to begin with?
Bob Jameson did.
Oh, okay. So you agree with the amendment? Okay.
Thank you. Finally got somebody to agree with me.
Commissioner McKenna?
I'm still,
Disagree with you, buddy.
Hold on a second.
I'm still a little concerned that this, the mayor, the law director just kind of addressed this, that this is being restricted to the actual city limits of specific cities. I mean, if somebody wanted to put a $2 million place in Brightsville, I think maybe we should look at that. But it's in the county.
I'm all for that, but let's go with this right now.
Yeah.
We'll come back and expand that and run that through the
Yeah.
IDB. I'd
That's
rather
right.
approve this at this point.
It only takes one meeting to modify that.
Absolutely. And I'm all on board with that. There's some other areas in this county that I think are economically depressed and would enjoy having a lower threshold.
But Jay, couldn't those words right there be added?
If they'll do that
Economically
tomorrow,
depressed?
The whole issue is defining those areas.
Right.
I've got some ideas, and I'm sure some others in here have some ideas, but I
Or
do
similar
want-
areas approved by the county commission or something?
I know Mark, he's very detailed, Mark Maventoff, and he's gonna wanna clearly define these areas, and, that may be.
Well, if you all think back on the resolutions where you have approved, and this is what Jay's referring to, in the law, you have to identify economic development zones. So you're drawing a boundary, and so probably on this, the boundary is the municipalities. And that was one of the things, for instance, when I was talking about what Nashville did. They said, we don't need TIFs anymore in this area. We've got so much growth that we're voting on mass transit, we've got all these road costs. Let's look at our county and where do we need growth? We know Rocky Top doesn't even have a grocery store. That's a no-brainer. And so that resolution allows that. But a lot of times what you'll see come to you are someone has a project, then they go to the IDB and they build the zone, the TIF zone, around the project. And I think what you're talking about doing from the intergovernmental standpoint is, let's go ahead and identify so that when you're voting something up and down, what already makes sense? Does this area of the county warrant freezing, because you are freezing your property taxes. I know they're going for development, but, those are the things that you all will want to decide as commissioners when you lay the map out for Anderson County. So tonight, if you did something like, well, let's say North End, Anderson County, well, all of North End may not need it. You may just have an area where there's some blight or there's some trouble getting people to build. Maybe you want some amenities out by the lake for tourists. You know, those are things that you all want to, it's probably going to take you a little bit of work to do that.
When we
So-
did the tourism district zone, if you remember that?
Yes.
For those grants, well, that's kind of how we defined
Yes.
it back then. But I think what the intergovernmental committee was wanting to talk to about with the IDB board is the reduction of years and, you know,
That was
from
one of
20
the
year
main
to
things,
10-year
was
maximum,
reduction of time.
some of those things.
On some of these TIFs.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
So we got a motion to, well, go ahead.
No, I was just, I think maybe go ahead and approve this, like you said tonight, with those boundaries. But I still think we need to do something for the Claxton area and even Briceville, as somebody mentioned, But you're not gonna get much of a $3 million investment in Claxton. And it's not considered a blighted area, I don't guess, but at the same time, it's just right outside the city limits of Oak Ridge and right outside the city limits of Clinton. But it's, I don't think you're gonna get a $3 million project. And I'd like to see something for the remainder of the county be included, under the investment of $500,000 for the rest of the county. And I don't know why we couldn't just add that, the rural part of the county outside of any municipality come under that same guideline as 500,000.
That can be shown as a blighted area.
I like where you're headed, but that's hard to define in itself. I think I would prefer myself what Robert's proposing. That's a little bit simpler to define. It seems like to me, just, I'll have to think through this, but just almost all the unincorporated areas of Anderson County be subject to that, as long as we have discretionary authority to issue the TIF or not. I keep thinking about the one we had up at David Jones, and that $3 million may have been proper there. So, but I keep leaning towards the unincorporated areas of the county. But then we want to capture Norris, Oliver Springs, and Lake City. So I think we need to think through this, in Rocky Top.
Right.
I think we need to think through this, and my recommendation right now is to get this one passed.
Okay.
Then come back through the intergovernmental committee, talk about reducing the time period, and then also talking at the same meeting or another meeting about, hey, let's enlarge this lower threshold area, and talk about some other areas of the county. I think that's the proper thing to do, because we've already got this one pretty much in the process. Got one final vote tomorrow, and we could have this thing approved next Tuesday night. And that's critical, sometimes timing is. So let's just bring it up next intergovernmental committee meeting and discuss it and flesh it out.
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay. We've got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And I think maybe the other motion that somebody needs to make is that, Catherine, as chairman of the intergovernmental committee, I think what was looked forward to is some type of motion that would give her support to say that we're asking the Industrial Development Board to work more close with the intergovernmental committee.
Yes. I guess the discussion was, like you said, to have TIF requests come to the intergovernmental relations to ferret out all the questions and then move it forward to operations or full
Exactly.
commission. Yeah,
I've been here 3 days. Did we vote for Jerry's amendment? Did we vote on his amendment? Okay.
it was included with the original motion, but good question, yes. The intent was on that motion to include that amendment together, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'll make that motion then to have the intergovernmental committee work with the Industrial Development Board prior to coming to operations.
Second.
The motion second, discussion on that. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman, on that subject, I think we have a member from Rocky Top. Would she mind coming up and introducing herself and speaking real quickly and just tell us, that way we can get it out on the airways that we're open for business and there's a potential property that might want to be vested in, if you're okay with that.
I'm okay with it. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name's Donna Sharp. I own the ShopRite building in Rocky Top. It's a 20,000 square foot grocery store building. And been trying to get someone in there. A lot of the chain stores aren't interested. They want minimums, minimum sales, minimum parking spaces, minimum, different things. And so that's been kind of a tough thing. We've been reaching out to independents. We have a lot of contacts through different wholesalers. My brother has a store in Rockwood, and so we've been talking to all of them and trying to get them in contact with their buyers and try to find some interest into going into Rocky Top. Any questions? I'm sorry?
How can we help?
This that they're proposing with the funding is a huge help. If you have any ideas of anybody, we've had some individuals, some of them not with a lot of grocery experience. So that's something that, is pretty crucial. A lot of people think you can just, go in and stock the shelves and open the doors and it's, ready to go. And it's not really that way. There's a lot to it. And so.
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Sharp, so
Yes.
could you give us the address of your location?
The address is 108 Creek Street in Rocky Top.
That's in Rocky Top.
Uh-huh.
And
What's
you're,
the name of the street?
Creek Street.
Cricket.
Uh-huh.
Creek.
Oh, Creek, yeah, I know where that is.
Creek.
Creek is east. So you're open for business and you're interested in talking to some folks
All
about-
comers. I'll talk to anybody.
And your goals you'd like to get a grocery store, but obviously you'll
Yes.
talk to anybody.
Yes, that's definitely my preference, is because the community needs it so badly. So yes, definitely preference is a grocery store. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Do you have a business card or a business?
I'm sorry, I don't.
Or do you have a business telephone number?
Can I give it to you after the, I don't really want to
Yeah,
put it.
yeah.
We're really pushing this, aren't we?
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I shouldn't ask.
No, that's fine.
Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually talked to someone on my mail route today about ShopRite, and he told me something I'd never heard, so this is a rumor. You may not want to confirm or deny this on TV either, but are there any restrictions or covenants in the deed as far as alcohol sales? Because he was positive that the reason it hadn't sold was because alcohol couldn't be sold there, and I didn't really remember if.
There are no restrictions in the deed. It was always our understanding that because we had so many churches, like we have one directly behind us and one directly beside us, that we weren't allowed to sell alcoholic
So
beverages.
that's probably what he's thinking. then. It's
Probably.
probably the church. property.
There's the old Mark's Pharmacy building, there's been some people go into that and open kind of a little market deli type place in there. They're selling alcoholic beverages and they're right beside us. So their comment was that that they had been told that if they enforced that they couldn't sell beer anywhere in Lake City or Rocky Top because there are so many churches. So that's, my understanding is that is not a restriction.
Okay.
It is in the county.
It is,
but
okay. In the county,
I'm
but
sure
not in the city, okay.
Any other discussion? Ms. Sharp, thank you very much for coming. Thank you
Thank y'all.
for your investment into Rocky Top and Anderson County. And we look forward to working with you. And thanks to everybody on this panel and all the other committees that's willing to work.
Great. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next was a tax rate proposal the state is considering, and we got this on January 21st, and I talked to John Reagan today, and this hasn't got to a committee yet. But I'm going to read a little bit about the good news. This is the state finances focus of this week, and this was for January 21. It come from David Connor. While new legislative proposals are being filed by the hundreds already this session, members of the General Assembly are getting some early reports about the surplus revenues they have heading into state budget discussions. Administration officials report this week more than $750 million was collected above what was originally estimated for the last fiscal year and the first part of the current year 2019-2020. That surplus accounts for only part of the state's improved financial well-being to date. Other state funds also have excess revenue in addition to the state's $1.1 billion rainy day fund. State CAFR, during the Senate Finance hearing this week, staff from the Department of Finance Administration presented the state's most comprehensive annual financial report. According to this report, Tennessee unrestricted net position this year improved from a positive $5.51 billion in 2018 to $6.73 billion in 2019. The restricted net position, obligated funds, grew from $2.08 billion to $2.21 billion. The state's net investment in capital assets grew from $29.61 billion to $30.35 billion. That positive unrestricted net position compares dramatically to some surrounding states that are in the red, billions of dollars. Mississippi is approximately $5 billion in the red. Kentucky, which has significant issues with its retirement funds, is $40 billion in the red. The amount of excess funds available to the General Assembly has sparked numerous conversations about what to do with money. Some are discussing ways to reduce the state portion of the sales tax in certain circumstances. Others are considering an array of one-time investments. One proposal that directly affects county governments is a possible $55 million infusion into county roads and bridges, a plan in the early stages of budget talks that seem to be getting some traction. All of these discussions set the stage for Governor Lee's scheduled budget presentation and State of the State address on February 3rd, which we heard, when Tennesseans will get the first glimpse of what the Lee administration considers priorities for the coming fiscal year. With that, I say hats off to our Lieutenant Governor, Randy McNally, that's on that Finance Committee. He's led that up. And to all of our legislative committee, our senators, you know, they've done a good job. And the proof's there, but it's also telling them that they got unrestricted money. So if we see for things, you know, like what we've talked about tonight, trying to get some funds for the senior center, there's money available. So any other projects, road projects or any of that, and I talked to Representative Reagan today. The next time I haven't been to committee yet. Everything's still new. So if we come up with something, you know, let's put something together and ask. The next thing was the property tax cap, and this is the thing that kind of caught my eye. While lawmakers are developing legislation ahead of filing deadlines on February 5th and 6th, proposal to put limits on how much a local government can raise property taxes has created a stir. While the bill has not been filed yet, news outlets have reported that Senator Mike Bell is considering a proposal that would require anything over 5% increase in the property tax rate be approved by the voters. The conservative Beacon Center of Tennessee is pushing for the statewide cap, pointing to the move as basic physical responsibility as reported by the media. County associations have long argued that the local property tax is the single most critical source of revenue for counties, necessary to maintain mandated services such as K-12 education, law enforcement, and corrections, roads and bridges, and the courts, as well as the other day-to-day functions. Restricting access to the property tax base would hamstring local governments trying to meet the local demands for services from county taxpayers and residents. No bills being filed. At this time, this capital update was compiled. TCSA has already started to collect data on the physical impact of property tax caps and specific information on past increases made by Tennessee counties. Now, in my opinion, when you put both these things together and you talk about how much money they have left over, I think they could start funding the prisoners more from what they're giving the jails. And I think this is something that this committee could come up with and present this to our legislators to go say, let's take some of this money that we've got and help fund these, our jails. So that's what I would ask, if we could do that.
Or potentially build some prisons so they can take their prisoners out of our jail.
That's true.
Can I say what I'd like for them to do? I'd like for them to eliminate the food tax. This is the Appalachian region, and the food tax is a burden on our citizens. I've asked them that just about every year at the breakfast with the legislators, but they keep telling me how they're going to pay for it or make it up. And it sounds like they don't need to make it up. Sound like they already got the money.
Well, you know, Anderson comes first when we talk about counties in the state of Tennessee, and I would like for us to be the beacon to lead the charge on some of these ideas.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I agree with the comments. I attended the Tennessee County Commissioners Association meeting, when was it? Last week, I guess. And these items were discussed. They missed you, Commissioner Meade. They asked where you were. I told them you was working on some other major issues here in the county. But
No, actually, I was in a conference in Atlanta.
okay, well,
that I paid
you're still
one
working.
for
You're still
3
working.
months ago.
Yeah, you're still working. So the bill you spoke of with the cap on the property tax, we're going to strongly oppose that because the smaller counties out there that you'll cripple them if you just, I mean, they can't function if you take away, that's the only fund mechanism they have.
Well,
So-
I don't think they've got anybody to carry it yet from the
Yeah.
House side.
So we, as Tennessee County Commission Association, we strongly oppose that one. One we're strongly supporting is firefighters training stipend, which is introduced by Senator Yeager. It's bill number 2385 and 1639, and that is for all volunteer firefighters to receive an $800 from the Commission Firefighting Personnel Standards. Most of those funds that are being collected are only going to municipality firefighters, so we're hoping that they'll pick that up. And as Governor Lee's State of the State, there's $100 million he set aside for counties, so I'd like to see the mayor and this body, if you got ideas and suggestions, let's put them together and let's send them to the state and see if we can put something. Mayor looks like she has something on her mind already.
You mentioned that, and I did share with Budget Committee, so I don't want them to get all the good news, but in Governor Lee's proposal, that amount you mentioned, Anderson County's portion of that will be $546,551. And this money can be spent on one-time expenses for the following categories: IT, hardware upgrades, capital maintenance, utility system upgrades, road projects, and public safety. And that's based on every county gets a $250,000 base allocation, and then the rest of the payment is based on population. And then our cities get $15,000 base, and then a contribution based on their population. And I would like to see us all address it. One of the ideas I mentioned, I was chatting with Commissioner Yeager about it, was, maybe on ESG, that's capital maintenance. Maybe we reduce that borrowing. So for instance, you could, reduce the borrowing $400,000 and end up saving $600, or, an additional $200 over the life of that. But as he was saying, well, we need to crunch those numbers because we need to measure inflation. Maybe it's better to buy things now. So there is some number crunching to do there, but maybe you do reduce some in order to save that interest and spend some. I mean, there's all kinds of ideas. And I would love to see us raise, to Chairman Isabel's point on the inmate boarding. I have a speech from Governor McWhorter, and in that speech, he proposed paying counties what is today 80 plus, I want to say it's now $81 or $82 a day to house inmates. And then they were giving out grants. And the state, when they put that program in place that many years ago, the idea was that they would cost share and the state would save money and headache and prevent prison riots and be able to better manage facilities and not have to build new prisons by partnering with the counties. And I love the idea of going to a vote for, capping property taxes. I'm a small government conservative, but at the end of the day, when TCI comes in and says, you're overcrowded, and, the federal judge comes, I mean, if we look at a lot of our costs, they're on opiates and housing inmates and properly caring for inmates, and our hands are tied. So you all have, done what had to be done to stay in compliance with the law. What if you did say, well, how are you going to fund that? There's only 20, if you look at our budget, our general fund budget's about $26 million, and then your schools are the majority. So what are you going to do? I mean, where are you going to get it? And so I would love to see us ask that to the state to start with. Could you do an actuarial study on what we counties have saved you from doing capital building funds for state prisons? And then ask for an allocation maybe to start with. And I know the state has, you all have been a part of this, I know the state has increased us $1 here or $2 there. But at the end of the day, it doesn't touch debt service and what we're paying to build that facility. And I would like to see them, maybe we approach the request that way instead of it being Anderson County begging for money. We say, what have we saved you over the years? Because we house a lot of state inmates here in Anderson County. And anyhow, and then since I'm talking about additional money too, maybe we can talk to General Clark and have him come over, give us an update on the opiate legislation. I was talking to one of the attorneys that is working with the DAs, and he said, Mayor, your commission needs to go ahead and put something together on how you want to spend the money, because you will get a large amount of money on the opiate. I mean, ultimately, you're going to receive a lot. Yes. So what do you want to do with it? You want to pay down debt. You want to build new mental health programs. Do you want a justice center? He just said you need to kind of, it may not be this year, but at some point in the future, you need to have your game ready on how you want to, instead of it just being a windfall, and then just be more organized about it. And I said, are you sure? He said, I'm certain. So anyhow, maybe General Clark can come see what he thinks about it, but that was one of the attorneys that was working on that, so.
So, just quick, what, we don't have to apply for anything? That 546,000 is just gonna be allocated to Anderson County out of the 100 million?
Yes, and we have to, it
But we
has
gotta
to
use
be
it in those specific
those
areas.
5 categories, yes.
So are you developing a strategy from your perspective on what you'd like to see, or the
I
finance
think
budget?
you all, at budget, I just did because I got the email that day, I just did off the top of my head.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we add to next month's operation agenda how to utilize the 546,000, roughly.
$551.
$551,000, and address it in the next operations meeting.
A motion is second, and I agree with you, because that is the operational, is where we decided to. Any discussion on the motion?
Yeah, just one
Commissioner
comment.
Christie.
I'd like to hear what the mayor has to, some of her suggestions to the operations. I hope you do put some out of a punch list of what you'd like to see.
Agreed.
Okay.
Agreed. I expect her to be here. to- Well, sure, just like we did tonight.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. The last thing is, under new business, is motor vehicle lease, Lauderdale.
Standard, motor vehicle lease that you have done for, the other volunteer fire departments. This is Andersonville. I believe that'll be it unless Bedford comes forward and decides to apply. But we've taken care of Claxton, Marlow, Briceville, Andersonville, and, 2 went to Rowan State Community College. This is the last one that I know of. It's exactly like the ones you've approved before, only the VIN's been changed, the tag number's been changed. So, the Sheriff's Office is requesting you approve that, and we'll get this out to Andersonville shortly.
Approved.
Got a motion, second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
That's all I have for you. Thank you, sir.
Let's go home.
Okay, anything under old business?
No.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much for your time. All great.
He does.